Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 200 of Salvaggio and Cratty. Here for you again on another Wednesday night, 3rd of July. Happy 3rd of July. Happy 4th of July. 6:57 p.m. Episode 200. Looking forward to another 100 and then 100 more after that. Exciting stuff. Kind of debriefing the first big wave of NHL and NBA free agency, talking some Bruins stuff. Celtics and Red Sox. So we're covering a lot tonight, and Patriots as well. Everything, really. Lot to get to right before the holiday. And yeah, Ryan, episode 200, how are you feeling about 200 and just in general?
Crazy that it doesn't feel like I gotta fix my mic here. I can't hear myself. Crazy because it doesn't feel like we've done 200 of these. That they just come that easy, and kind of fitting that we have everything to talk about tonight. I think NBA and NHL free agency and the draft recap and everything couldn't have come at a better time. Obviously nice of the Patriots to do something again when it comes to locking up one of their own talents once again to talk about them, and then of course the Red Sox starting to ramp up with them with the trade deadline right around the corner, the All-Star. I just saw it tonight. The All-Star stars are going to be announced. Probably not going to be a Red Sox in the starting lineup of the All-Star game, so we're probably not going to touch on that too much. But mainly some trade deadline stuff, some rumors that have kind of come up, and maybe a direction or what direction we think they might be heading in, or what they should probably do.
Right. We are, NHL NBA free agency have started. Now the next big thing in that realm is the MLB trade deadline towards the end of the month. So we'll cover a lot tonight, and we'll start with the Bruins. First, a PSA. Please sign Jeremy Swayman, Bruins. That needs to happen now. Um, just saying, we need more progress than what's being reported so far in these contract negotiations because obvious reasons.
It's not
Um,
encouraging that you really haven't heard a
Not
lot, and
encouraging.
when you do hear stuff, it's that they haven't made any sort of progress on anything. Like I don't want to say we're back to where we were a year ago with the problems with not arbitration or yeah arbitration for hockey, I guess. Um,
Mhm.
and we all know how that ended or how Swayman felt about that. So not a great sign that we're kind of at a stalemate once again. Especially now you
No.
don't have a backup caliber goalie like you had in Olmark. You have the crap that is
Oh,
Corpusalo, as we talked about already. So this is one you can't really mess up or can't afford to do it.
yeah, you can't. So just do that. I have faith they will. It's just a matter of when. We'll start with free agency. That's the most hot button thing. Elias Lindholm, he's been linked to the Bruins for a while. Finally becomes a Bruin. Him and Zadorov even talked about like wanting to be a Bruin for like wanted to both be Bruins for like at least a year. So maybe this is a great fit where they both hit the ground running and it starts off with amazing returns early on. Um, Elias Lindholm, a guy I've had my skepticism about, gets the big payday I somewhat expected him to get. I was expecting more around like 7.5. He gets a little more. 7 by 7.75, 54.25 million total. Um, Full no move. Crazy. It's a huge contract, and I'm glad they did it from the sense of getting a player that can be a third line center, but he has to be a third line center is the thing. You're not like expecting him unless you're more confident than I am to come in and put up 70 plus points a season. Um, it's going to take some time. I don't know if he's just going to hit the ground running in Boston and immediately return to that form we saw in that big year he had where he had 42 goals with Calgary, where people were much higher on him. Things have changed since then. They're going to have to insulate him properly. And I think that starts with Pastrnak. That's the obvious one. You play him with Pastrnak. Potentially Zaka. I don't know if they'd want to put Marchand up there because he is getting older, and you do want to balance out the talent a little bit. I think keeping him in a second line role with Coyle and whoever else, maybe Fabian Lysell, would be really nice because it sounds like they're not spending on another winger unless they want us to think that. And they got something up their sleeve to make enough room for a winger in Jeremy Swayman. There's risk associated with this move. There is financial risk, especially looking bad, but hopefully he can provide 60 plus point seasons, play good enough defense, and contribute on the power play and be an effective player because it does give them a better number one center than Charlie Coyle or Pavel Zacha, and
For
Pavel Zacha is
sure.
going to move to the wing as
Mhm.
part of this. So it's a lot to take in. It's risky, but it's better than being too cautious and settling for someone less, and then everybody's pissed off. Some people were
Absolutely.
pissed off about this, and that's fine. There are reasons to be, but overall, I think, you should get behind this move. And, while I do have my doubts about it, I'm ready to see what he's about. I'm glad it wasn't the 9 million at least that he talked about in January wanting. So I guess you got your number one center, and then we see how it goes. But it's good to have the guy, and a guy that's been fired up to be here for a while, wanted to be here for a while, and hopefully it works out. And hopefully
Mhm.
with the cap going up in the future, it won't look all that bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm just glad that, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, because I feel like every offseason when it comes to the Bruins, it's kind of that approach of, all right, we don't have obviously a lot of cap space to begin with, so let's just kind of wait it out. See what we can, maybe we get a bargain here and there. We're kind of signing guys on the second and third day of free agency, or maybe towards the end of the first day when, the big names are gone. The fact that it's free agency open up at what, noon on
Yeah.
Monday? Like, as soon as free agency opened up, you had this bang bang, Lindholm and Zadorov off the board completely. So I liked that you finally saw maybe some proactiveness from the Bruins that you haven't seen in a while. I feel like a lot of people have, or at least that I've heard, have kind of said it's the first time they've done this. It feels like since was it Chara and Savard, that big free agency kind of spending. So they've kind of, people have linked, those two moves to these two type of moves. And interesting enough, a center and defenseman both ways. So I like both of them. I'm with you. The contract, yeah, it doesn't look great on paper because it is big numbers. And again, I talked to you a couple of times on Monday where, like, hockey contracts always throw me off. I never know what a big amount is in hockey because I've just been so um, tainted when it comes to, baseball and basketball contracts being absolutely
Mm-hmm.
insane. But on the flip side of that, like, you had to overpay a little bit for these guys. If you were going to get into a massive bidding war, you were going to probably lose. So again, good to see that they were proactive to get two guys that they desperately needed. And, we'll talk about the losses. Yeah, there's a couple of them that maybe sting here, but I think a lot of people can agree that the Bruins are a better team now than they were, 24 hours before free agency opened up. I feel like with these two moves, it obviously, like you said, kind of pushes Coyle into a role he's more comfortable with. Move
He can
Zaka
feast
back to
on
the
lower
wing.
level players
Yeah,
like
we've
he
seen
used
him do
to.
that in the past. We talked about that. He's a guy when he was playing on the third line. It's like having a first or second line center on that line because the talent he's going up against. And then Zaka, a guy who looks like he feels more comfortable playing on the wing, at least in my mind. I don't know if you feel the same way about that.
Agreed.
He moves that back to that spot, and obviously we saw him, have success when paired with Pasternak, on flanking whoever the center was at times. So that'll be good to get back to that as well.
Yeah, there's a way there are ways rather for this to work. And you could say, like you said, the team is better than it was at the start of free agency, but you did have some losses along the way that we'll get to. Um so yeah, that's where we're at with Lindholm. Hopefully on the power play he can be a bumper, he can, be an effective player. And it was nice to see him sign right away, like you said, with Zadorov, because even if teams were bidding on him, was he even gonna like really consider them? It didn't seem like
Yeah, with everything that's kind of come out, like you
he was
said,
really
about
super
them
eager to
wanting to
go
be
anywhere
here.
else.
Yeah.
It would have to be can't miss.
Hmm.
Um, and if there were a bidding war, if the Bruins were to want to do like 7.5 and he went for 7.75, everybody would be pissed.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
and rightfully so. So Zadorov to me is a great pickup. Um, he wasn't like a guy you absolutely had to have, but you had the money to get him,
Hmm.
and you probably signed him for a little more longer than you would have liked, but that's okay. Like if it gets down the road and it's ugly, that becomes an easier contract to get rid of. But right now, he is a forceful defender. He can move pretty well at times for a guy his size. I don't know if there's anyone in the league anymore that can hit someone and have them bounce off like they're hitting titanium,
Hmm.
like Nikita Zadorov. This is a defenseman that provides stability. It provides a potential awesome partner for Charlie McAvoy, and it gives you depth that maybe you could have gone with Jacob Chikrin, or maybe you could have spent 7 years worth of money on Brady Shea like Nashville did. I am comfortable with this. I do not love the years, but
Hmm.
like I said, I think down the road, like if you need to get out of that contract, it's a little easier. I'm not too worried. I'm not too worried about those first 4 years for him. Which gives me comfortability. Like my thing was I wanted 4 or 5 years though. Is what it is. Extra year.
Yep.
You get an intimidating presence. You get a guy that wants to be here. You get a guy that'll talk smack. This is a guy I see settling into like a leadership role while not in like the group of guys that have been here for a while pretty quickly.
Mhm.
Like a presence in the locker room, a presence on the ice, and someone that makes teams scared to play you. Yeah, I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, I would have hated this move because I didn't really like Nikita Zadorov a few years ago. He has turned things around in my eyes.
Mhm.
I think he is settled into what he should do as a hockey player much better over the years, and I like it. I really like it. The five maybe is a little much too, but again, like it's another thing. Like, are you really gonna nitpick if it's like
Yeah,
two hundred
exactly.
fifty k more with the cap going up? I would have liked it like 4 or 5 years, 4.75, 4.6. But hey, like let's not nitpick at the sake of saving a few bucks every year
Yeah,
when you're
exactly.
trying to contend. This is the Boston Bruins we're talking about. Yeah, it's a formidable presence on the back end. It's a guy that can kill penalties. It's a guy that will block shots, will hit. Whether he plays with McAvoy, whether he plays with Carlo, whether he plays with Andrew Peak, he is going to make an impact on this team, and I'm excited. And really makes the Bruins a scarier team to face.
Mhm. Hey, he's already won me over because I think I sent it to you. Like his first interview with the media, one of his first comments was like, "I know, there was a big Z that played here. Don't ever call me that again, because that there was only one big Z or whatever." I'm paraphrasing, but you know what I mean. You shaking your head, yes. So like, I love that out of him. This deal, to be honest, kind of excites me more than the Lindholm one because, like you said, you didn't really like. You obviously knew going into the offseason you needed to get some sort of help in the middle. And Lindholm obviously fits that, but again, like going into defensive core, you didn't really need to make any big splashes. Like, yeah, it would be nice to have like an upgrade in certain places. But if I figured they were going to maybe sign a couple of, we knew Grizzly was probably going to be gone. There was a question of forward. So, maybe they signed those type of guys to kind of fill those holes. But they hit a home run with this pick as well. Like you said, I love the nastiness this guy brings. Because we've seen, the bigger Bruins defensive players, the Carlos at times has not played up to you know, his body size and the physicality he should play with. We all know Lindholm is one of the softer guys on this team, at least in my opinion. Um, so you bring in Zadorov, I think that fixes a lot of problems. And like you said, it brings some nastiness that you really haven't had on that back end. And it is obviously, if he gets paired with McAvoy, is going to help that too. Because I think you saw McAvoy at the end of last year, get beat up, get worn down, and his
Yeah,
play really, really struggled. We talked about that in the playoffs. You have this guy paired with McAvoy. I think you're going to see a lot less of guys maybe
yeah,
going after McAvoy or trying to be more physical with him because you're going to have a guy
yeah.
like Zadorov who can, strike some fear into people.
They're going to be looking over their shoulder, and long term, I
Absolutely.
do still love the idea of low Ryan McAvoy, but
Hmm.
this gives you an opportunity to you can adjust the lineup, no problem. But like
Absolutely. Yeah.
Lowry can start, like he's still fairly young. Like you don't have to throw him in with McAvoy right away. If he earns those minutes, he earns those minutes. The thing with McAvoy too is, Ty Anderson brought this up relatively later in the season about how he wondered how McAvoy having a bit of down season for stretches and sometimes really bad stretches was because he's missing that support of a top center like Bergeron on the breakout.
Hmm.
Lindholm isn't Bergeron, but he provides elements similar to Bergeron. He's not close, but this is a guy that's been in Selke races before. He's up there, and he can be an effective three zone center, sometimes really effective. So that helps McAvoy. That helps everybody on defense. But McAvoy, as your number one guy, that's your most important guy you want to
Hmm.
elevate in that regard. And Zadorov, players are going to look over their shoulder when they fuck with McAvoy now. And you have a guy in Zadorov that can shelter some defensive responsibility and, just keep some pressure off of McAvoy so he can do his thing, so he stays fresher. Because we've seen, he scored 12 goals this last year, but like there is a level to be reclaimed from McAvoy's offense in the
Hmm.
future.
For sure.
And these two moves help that. And that is important because you're paying the guy $9.5 million. You want him at the top of your game, the top of his game. So yeah, like at first, I'm not gonna lie, I saw these moves and I saw the big numbers, and I was kind of freaking out a little bit. I was like, okay, like they're huge, they're a little bigger than I thought. I'm a little worried about this, but I'm gonna see it out. Like I'm not gonna lie, I was a little panicked, especially the Zadorov one because it was more years than I expected. But
Hmm.
it comes down to the players you have being difference makers. How long they're gonna be difference makers remains to be seen. But they make your team better, and you're a team that gave the Stanley Cup champions the biggest run for their money besides,
Absolutely.
Edmonton towards the end. It was looking like Edmonton might have got swept, but Edmonton put up a good fight. You and Edmonton put up the best fight against the Panthers. Then the Panthers, another team that's seen some change so far. We'll talk about later. But yeah, you're a better hockey team now. That's the important part. That's what you strive for. And you have enough to comfortably sign your goaltender still, whenever that happens. And it opens up some room for young players that we've been waiting for. We saw Mason Lohrei eventually make his way into the lineup. We saw Johnny Beecher, Justin Brazeau eventually. Like, we saw some of that willingness to, have a good team in a plug and play year and let some of the young guys come in. Now you're a good team in the next step from a plug and play year with more cap space than you had last summer that is better. So if the right young guys like Elias or Merkulov or Riley Duran, who's made his way into the competition with a lot of praise this week at development camp, you're in business. If Fabian Lysell wants this bad enough and is an effective enough player, you're in business because you have him on short money for the next 2 years, and this is a guy that's motivated, a guy you took in the first round. You have George Merkulov. Nothing left to prove in the AHL, to be honest. If he can, get a consistent shot and show that offensive talent he has, you got two good players on really short money. And if Riley Duran makes his way onto the roster, that's a 6th-round pick making his way onto your NHL roster at 22 years old. That's pretty good. And I love Riley Duran. I've been high on this pick for a while. A lot of people have. Woburn Mass kid. Notes his game as he comes out of the draft like Charlie Coyle, and has been really praised for his, his hard work, determination, like that type of fourth line stuff. He's a great player. And I'm not going to be surprised at the same time if he starts in the AHL, because I think he could be really effective in the AHL. But you're in a spot where your team is better and your top guys in the forward core and your prospect core, outside of like recent good players they've drafted, of course, the guys that have been there for a little while, you have room to let them shine. And that gives you a mix that is exciting. And you have a group of guys that can make the transition to the NHL much easier for them.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what the future has in store. Absolutely. And again, I think just from a fan standpoint, at least for me, the being proactive, I can't get over that enough, or can't say that enough, to fill 2 holes that you needed. Like we talked about Lindholm and Zadorov, like that obviously helps kind of settle guys into other roles, as you mentioned. And that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Max Jones, really like Max Jones, guy that's not been able to establish himself as a former first-round pick as like a top 6 guy in Anaheim, but has the style to fit well on a fourth line. I see this guy as he'll kill some penalties every once in a while, and his main thing is physicality. And he's not like the biggest fast burst speed guy, but he's got enough jam and juice where he's always trying to make a play physically. He's always trying to get to the net. He has some decent hands for a fourth liner. It's a good deal at 2 years, $1 million per. He even said Boston, maybe he's just pandering here. I don't know though. Boston was his favorite road barn to play in, so he seems pretty excited to be here.
Maybe a little bit of pandering.
A little bit of pandering.
Mm-hmm.
You have a situation now where you have Beecher, you have Jones, you have Kostelic, Brazeau, maybe Trevor Kuntar, maybe Riley Duran to battle for the fourth line. That's pretty exciting. That's a young group, a fast group, a powerful group. This is nothing against, fourth line veterans, but this is a group of young guys that can establish themselves on short money again in your bottom 6 and be effective and play fast. I'm telling you, Jones, Kostelic, Brazeau, which I imagine we'll see some looks of. Like, holy shit. That's going to be a very annoying fourth line, a very physical fourth line. All guys that can score around the net. Maybe not as much Kostelic, but he'll win those defensive zone faceoffs that potentially lead to those scoring chances from your fourth line. We saw what Justin Brazeau could do in 19 games last year. He scored 5 goals. I like this group. I like the bottom 6. I like the composition of the roster, but yeah, Max Jones, are you in the same boat? I don't really know if there's much to complain about with Max Jones.
No, this is one of like the depth moves you expected him to make. And again, like there is a theme brewing with a lot of these moves. A lot of these guys seem to be on the bigger size. Bigger size. A little bit more toughness, and I like that because again, we talked about it ad nauseum last year how much they got pushed around, and in the end, we're banged up towards the end of the season. So if this is another guy that can kind of come in and be physical and again strike some fear, maybe not at the levels Zadorov's going to do it. But if Jones can do that too, and again, play physical, you'll take that, and that'll be obviously good to have as well.
Absolutely. Speaking of size, Riley Tufte, another former first rounder, hasn't quite panned out in the NHL like a Max Jones has. I see Riley Tufte as an AHL guy. I think they're going to give him all the chance in the world to force his way onto the NHL roster. But I don't know. I think his pro career as a former first rounder has been largely underwhelming. But this is a guy they're betting on. If he proves his way into the roster and we get some of that upside, even as a fourth liner, great. But if not, he's probably going to be a pretty solid AHLer. So I'm cool with the Riley Tufte move. He kind of falls in the same camp as me for me as Cole Koepke. Cole Koepke, a guy that battled his way. I think he played a few games on Tampa's roster last year. I liked his chance of making the team out of camp. I don't think he did though. I watched Cole Koepke a good amount in college. I always liked him at Minnesota Duluth. I scored 20 goals in the AHL last year, so that's nice. He's about 24, 25 years old. Great depth, great call-up option. I really liked Cole Koepke for a while since college. Jordan Osterley, been around the block. He's 32. Just another like a Dan Renouf or a Stephen Fogarty type of guy you've signed in the past for depth. Can play in a pinch if you need to call him up. I imagine he'll be one of the first call-up guys they need a defenseman. Billy Sweezy, this is a guy Mark Diver was very high on. Billy Sweezy, local kid, really good leader in the AHL. Right shot defenseman, you could use some help there. You lose Riley Walsh to the Kings, maybe he just subs in for him. I've heard good things about Billy Sweezy, so I like that. And Jeffrey Vriel from the Manitoba Moose, just another depth forward. Don't know if he fights his way into the fourth line, but maybe I think this guy's more of a pure AHL guy than probably anyone they signed. But you need depth. Guys make their way in and out of your AHL team every year. So I like all these depth moves. Anyone that sticks out to you? Anything you've seen, read, heard?
Not really. Just
Alrighty.
like you said, kind of it falls into the depth category, and like you said, can never have too much of that. And maybe like you said, if these guys get a chance, maybe one of them or one or two will pop, and you'll get something out of again what looks like really not a nothing signing at the time, but you know what I mean. Like again, you can't really talk up depth signings in too much.
And they've worked before. Parker Wotherspoon was one of these signings. Look at him now. Anthony Richard, we saw some good play out of him last year. He left for Philly, actually in free agency. He's one of the guys that departed. So one of these guys will replace him. It can work, and you can get effective games, even if it's like three to 5 games of these guys, and that's why you sign them, or else they're really good AHL guys that can hopefully lead your team to a championship down there. We did have a trade in the past week. Maybe unexpected to some, expected to others. Jacob Lauko was traded during the draft with pick 122, which led to be Aaron Kiviharju. We'll talk about him in a second because he's an interesting prospect. They go to Minnesota for old friend Vinny Lettieri, another guy who was what the Bruins signed as one of these AHL depth guys. He comes back. He'll be a good AHL player. I like Vinny Lettieri. And the 110th pick, so they move up 12 picks. They get Elliot Gronwald with that pick. Lauko, they clearly just, I think, wanted to move on from.
Didn't work out.
Outside of drawing penalties and like that one stretch late in the season, kind of ineffective last year. Part of his season did get screwed up by the skate to the face injury, but he fought Minnesota twice, and maybe Bill Guerin really liked that and said, I want to get this guy in the offseason. Minnesota has looked to really have almost completely retooled their fourth line, and maybe he'll be a part of that. I'm fine with the trade. I'm fine with the player the Bruins got in Gronwald, the more I've read about him. The interesting thing here is Aaron Kiviharju. And I don't know if you've ever heard of him, Ryan, because he went in the 4th round. But when Aaron Kiviharju was 15 years old, he was highly regarded down the road to this time, where we're at now, as potentially being a first overall pick.
First overall, not first round. Okay, so something.
I remember seeing, I'm dead serious, first overall top 10 lottery pick.
I sense a butt
Aaron
coming in this story then. Something took a drastic turn here.
Injuries, underwhelming performance, a little bit of it is size, I've heard, has dropped him to the 4th round. This happens. Maybe it doesn't happen to the Aaron Kiviharju extent, but like guys at the top of the draft at one point.
Pretty big drop.
Whether it's a year before the draft or 3 years, like Aaron, some of these guys drop. It is what it is. So hopefully Aaron Kiviharu doesn't come back to bite the Bruins in this deal. But he did walk up to Bill Guerin when he got drafted in the 4th round and said, "Hey, I got to tell you, man, you just got the steal of the draft." And Bill Guerin was very pumped about it.
Well, to Tom Brady, best decision you'll ever make.
Honestly, I'm not just saying this. I think somebody should have taken a shot on him sooner. They really should have. Like, I think the league might have. Maybe he is right. Maybe he is a steal. We'll talk about another steal the Wild got when we recap the draft with a couple notes. But yeah, that was interesting to see him go at 122. Kind of stings a little bit because the potential, but it's just a matter of whether he can bank on that potential. So, Lauko, are you upset or you kind of like is what it is?
Is what it is. With the way they're, I mean, obviously they don't know what they're going to do. I shouldn't say that. They have a plan going in, don't get me wrong, but like with all the moves they're starting to make now, all these guys are starting to sign. You're starting to run out of roster spots and chances. And like you said, Lysell might get a shot now. Merkulov, same thing. We've talked about them a couple times now. So you just do the math, and Lauko's out of a not out of a job because obviously there's a team that still wants him, but like out of a position with the Bruins.
Yeah.
So why not move him to a team that'll give him a chance and maybe he's able to pop for Minnesota now.
Yeah, exactly. And it stinks for the players, the person side of it too, because
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
anyone who pays attention to the Bruins knows that Lauko is like a very like vibrant, high level personality guy. So maybe that stinks losing that in the locker room, but it's a business. I think he'll probably get more of a chance to play on the 4th line in Minnesota than he would have here. So all the best, Lauko. Anybody who's been around for a while knows I was very high on the pick when they took him in 2018, and I wish him the best. Let's get to some other stuff. The Jake DeBrusk saga has come to a close. It felt inevitable for the last 4 months in particular. It has happened. Didn't seem like anything really got close there. Both sides were ready to move on. Jake is excited to be a Vancouver Canuck for the next 7 years. 38.5 million, 5.5 million per. I don't imagine Don Sweeney wanted to go 7 years there.
Oh, God, no.
I don't even know if he would have went 4 or 5. I think this was just bound for a breakup. It stinks. Say what you want about Jake DeBrusk. He's created some electric moments and has really been a high level player at times, but at times are the key words. The consistency was a problem. Trade requests. There's a lot that went on with him. I think now with stability financially for the next 7 years, doesn't have to worry about trade rumors, doesn't have to worry about his next payday. I think he's going to settle into that top 6 nicely, maybe play on the top line with JT Miller or Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser. And I think we're penciling Jake DeBrusk in for making the Bruins pay a little bit, but making them pay in the sense that he's not doing it for their team more so than, the Bruins should have kept him. There's an excellent case for the Bruins to keep Jake DeBrusk, but there was also the excellent case to not keep him that we just talked about.
Yeah, I was gonna say at that money and that term,
it wasn't gonna last that long.
No, you can't bank
They gave him bridge deal chances, and they clearly weren't satisfied. And sometimes you have to move on from those players.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like with you mentioned the inconsistencies with as much as as frequent as they've come for DeBrusk, that's 7 and 38.5. It is not a I don't know what the
it
word
doesn't break the bank. It was definitely affordable for the Bruins, but for
it's
what
not
he's
something
done
you can
here,
gamble on. Yeah,
you can't gamble. And Don Sweeney was, seems like for a while has been willing to move on from him. So.
There's part of me too. Like I said this when I think when we first started talking about DeBrusk a couple episodes ago, where it's like I wondered if just like a change of scenery, like he struck me as a prime candidate for change of scenery, reset everything, and just kind of go from there. So I think he'll be good in Vancouver. I'm rooting for the guy because again, it's when you have a guy as long as the Bruins has it, it is nice. It stinks that they leave, but it is nice to see them get a decent pay raise somewhere else, and another team give them a chance and believe in him. So I'm rooting for DeBrusk. I have no. As much as maybe it seems like I've dumped on him in the past with the inconsistencies, like
it's not personal. It's just
absolutely.
Yeah, but he's closer to home too. Edmonton kid, in British Columbia now. So wishing him the best. Yeah, I mean,
he's got plenty of teammates going with him too, so it's not like he's going to be alone out in Vancouver.
And for a team like Vancouver that wants to win a Stanley Cup, maybe Jake DeBrusk's playoff heroics will come in clutch down the road.
Yeah, maybe. Yep.
So big for them, big for him. Congrats to Jake. Dan Heinen's joining him, and this one stings. And talk about playing close to home. He's playing in British Columbia, where he's from. I I talked about this a month ago just as a fit, just because of the homecoming, and it came true. I was a little surprised he didn't get a third year, but it is what it is. Dan Heinen joins him, goes to Vancouver. Love this pickup for them too. I really like how they've reshaped their forward core a little bit. They moved on from Mikheyev. They add DeBrusk and Heinen on the wing, really nice. I don't think they added the other forwards. Yeah, Heinen is just he's gonna be Heinen for them. I think it's that simple. I think we've seen that with him reestablishing himself on a good team versus Anaheim or Pittsburgh. That this is who he is, and he's going to another good team. He's gonna be fired up to be home. I think it's awesome. I could. It's so awesome for him too, because he's the best guy that he gets to do this. He's put in, a lot of hard work. He's been moved around a lot. He had to earn it on a PTO, and now he gets to go home, get a bigger payday, and thrive. Vancouver's getting a guy that's good, reliable, can kill penalties, can really unleash some high-end offensive shooting ability at times. But overall, you're getting a player that you can rely on for 30 points and can move up and down your lineup. And Vancouver could really use that. And this is a great, great deal for the Canucks.
If he goes out there and lights it up, I'm curious to see, and maybe not light it up, like has a good start to the year. I'm curious to see what the reaction from Bruins fans will be, because I feel like obviously last year, him coming in, there were some people that were like, okay, cool, Danton Heim's back, like that's a great signing for the value of the deal, what he's going to do for the team. But I feel like there was a decent amount of people too that were like, really, you're bringing Danton Heinen back? Like the guy stunk here the first. So like if he goes out to Vancouver and plays pretty well to start the year, I wonder if the reaction now around this time around rather will be like, you couldn't bring Danton Heinen back? Like what the
It
heck?
will
Like
be.
you could,
It sure
yeah,
will
it's
be,
gonna
Ryan.
be such a yin and yang, or a flip of the coin type of scenario where I think it's gonna be funny.
Yeah.
But again, another guy that you're rooting for, because again, he kind of, I don't know, maybe saved his career is a little too strong last year, but maybe it's not, because again, nobody else wanted the guy last year.
Right.
Was kind of on his last leg with the Bruins, and played really well enough to get him another chance and another good pay, like DeBrusk, a good pay raise. So again, you're rooting for the guy out there. It does stink that he doesn't end up back here, because again, I was with you. I wouldn't have hated him coming back on a short-term deal, but again, like him walking out the door might not be the worst thing in the world, because it does open the door for a Lysell, a Merkulov, or again, another young guy to step up and maybe have a good season.
And that's like a 1.4 million cap space difference between like a Lysell and
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
Heinen. So like it's one of those deals you want to keep him, but you want that little extra money that
Yeah, if you can
gives you
save some money,
swingman
it's not the worst
flexibility.
thing. Yep.
Gives you that gives you a little extra money that'll might come in handy down the road at the deadline if you're trying to add. But it just felt like, as much as they wanted to keep him and the fans want him, it just like he was gonna get a team more comfortable to pay him that. Not like he broke the bank or anything
Yeah.
somewhere
Yep.
else, and he did. So all the best to him. Maybe he'll make a third stint. Maybe he'll come back in 2 years. Who
Yeah.
knows? That would be awesome. Like if it happened again, like sign me up, because I'll always take Dan Heinen on this team. Just keep number 43 warm for him.
Yeah.
Seriously. Derek Forbort also goes to Vancouver. Believe it or not, we got Zadorov and Lindholm coming here, and
So it should just
this
been a
trio going there.
5-player trade. And make it work that way.
Yeah, I mean the Bruins have emphasized size in the last few years, drafting and adding certain players, especially Zadorov, Lindholm, and the Canucks are doing the same on their back end. They keep Tyler Myers around for 3 years for some reason. He's big. Vinny Desharnais, some might remember him from Providence College. They signed him from Edmonton. He's like 6'6". And Derek Forbort, 6'3", 6'4", player for a 1-year deal at 1.5 million. So this was one that we've known for a couple months. It felt like ever since the injury late season, like he might have played his last game or two with the Bruins. Then he got a couple look or two in the playoffs, and that was it. And then we got the confirmation about a month ago that he was going to move on, and he does. He goes to Vancouver, back to the Western Conference, somewhere he's familiar with. Yeah, all the best to him. But he was just never in the plans. I think that was pretty easy to understand. At his best, really good at blocking shooting lanes, penalty killing, blocking shots. But we saw a little bit, with the injuries and the lack of effectiveness, and sometimes getting torched. It didn't really make sense to keep him. And now maybe he can get back to his old form a little bit with Vancouver.
Yeah, I mean the writing was kind of on the wall. You could see this one coming, not from a mile away, but like he kind of knew as the season went on. Like him, I'm sure the next guy we're going to talk about, both kind of similar situations. Like if you can get upgrades over him, you do that. And again, it kind of in the same boat as Heinen. Like if you can save some money by giving a young guy a chance, I'm not going to lose sleep over losing Forbort. As good as he was at time. Like again, this is I'm not making it seem like these guys like get rid of them because they stink. Like it's just it is what it is.
It is what it is, man. It's about it on Forbort. Matt Grizzly, this is funny that he ends up in Pittsburgh because this was a destination I wondered for him. And I always thought at times when Matt Grizzly was on the Bruins, he would fit well for the Leafs because he feels like a Leaf style defenseman. And Kyle Dubas used to run the Leafs. So maybe there's some connections between Maple Leafs and Penguins now, in my mind. But he goes to Pittsburgh. He could have to play right shot there with how their left side is set up. Actually, maybe not because they lost P.O. Joseph to actually both of the Joseph brothers, funny enough, are on St. Louis now. So that's cool for them, although they're on a garbage team. Grizzly, I mean, tough year. So a 1-year deal makes sense. He makes about $1 million less than he made on his prior contract. And this one, as much as it sucks to lose a guy that's, been Boston through and through, went to college in Boston, dad works with the team. Matt Grizzlick was not going to stay with this team. They didn't express really any interest during the season of contract talks. The effectiveness went down. He wasn't playing in the playoffs. It wasn't going to happen, and now he's in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he was one that like you couldn't. I think it was Felger talked about it the other day, and he brought up a good point, or maybe it was might have been Ty Anderson. Somebody on 98.5 kind of brought up a point of like it was 100% him. Now that I think about it, same thing. Like Grizzlick, were you going to bring him back to play him, at times in the regular season, have him get hurt or get beat around, and then just sit him the entire postseason? Like there was no need to kind of go through that again. We've kind of seen what Grizzlick has become the last couple of years. Not a liability by any means, but again, like get to the playoffs, you get to the nitty gritty of things. Like he's a guy that again, nothing against the guy, but you can't really rely on because of the size and just, again, the injuries that have started to pile up for Grizzlick. So this is another one that like you kind of had to move on from him to give other guys opportunities. Maybe you lose a little bit power play wise, puck moving wise, but again, I think there's other guys that can step up.
He became less effective in those roles.
Absolutely.
So, and like we said, they've had Carlo for a while. McAvoy's the shortest top 6 defenseman on the team now. Zadorov, Lindholm, Andrew Pika's some size. Parker Wotherspoon's about 6'6'1", I believe. He just didn't fit with the identity of the defense. I think, the league, certain teams have emphasized size more in drafting and adding players ever since
more
Vegas.
And more too, yeah.
Vegas, everyone was over 6'2" on Vegas, and look how it worked. It's a real thing, and it's worth, with the right players taking a shot at. And I like the way the Bruins have constructed their roster. Pat Maroon and Jesper Boquist. Pat Maroon gets a nice little payday outside of vet minimum, which I thought he might have got. 1.3. Chicago's got money to spend.
Fair, yeah.
They did it with, remember when they gave Foligno $4 million twice?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
I mean, it is what it is with Pat Maroon. He's a great. I mean, you have Maroon and Foligno on the same team now for a young up and coming group. That's awesome.
I was thinking the same thing. That's a good.
Craig Smith there too.
I was gonna ask you because I saw his name come up the other day. I'm like, that's just it's Bruins. Yeah,
that's awesome. That they're best friends from their time with the Bruins, and now they're back together after a 1-year deal in Dallas. Craig Smith goes to Chicago. I like what they're building in Chicago. We'll talk about it a little later, but I like what they're doing in Maroon.
It's a good balance.
They have a real Kyle Davidson's a smart dude. He's done good drafting so far. We'll see how that all turns out. But I like this Maroon signing for them. Bruins, they weren't going to pay Pat Maroon $1.3 million.
No, God, no.
Only a team like Chicago was doing it. So all the best to Pat Maroon. Jesper Boquist to Florida. I mean, that kind of stinks. He goes to a team you're battling with, and Boquist was good, but the writing was on the wall with certain guys they have that are going to be in this mix that we talked about in the fourth line, and the Bruins not qualifying him. So any thoughts on Boquist and Maroon? You lose a little speed with Boquist, but I like the size and some speed combo you have in that fourth line mix now. So it's not the end of the world. And, they've seen some turnover in Florida, so he should play a decent amount.
Yeah, I mean, Boquist, that we just joked about it. The only thing that stinks about that is that he goes to the enemy in Florida.
Yeah.
The Maroon one was we talked about Maroon a couple of times, and I think I said that I wouldn't hate him coming back just to kind of have on that fourth line, especially if he's right. Like it gives you a big body that you were lacking. Obviously, that was what he was brought in for. But then you go out and make these other moves that we already talked about, and you get a guy that not as tough by Maroon. And like Maroon by any means, but Max Jones, I'm gonna say that now every time we talk about that guy. I'm gonna call him Mac every time.
Yeah, that's what Truck actually said in our group
Did he?
chat. It's like we
Yeah.
signed Mac Jones.
Yeah. But like he seems like he can fill in that, a little bit of offensive ability, but also has some size to him. So like you lose Maroon, it's not the end of the world again. But like I said, that I think and you said we're going to talk about it a little later. Chicago's putting a pretty good mix together, some toughness, some veteran guys, obviously with Bedard and a younger team. And that has the possibility to gel really well.
Yeah. But all the best to all the departures. We still haven't heard anything about JVR or Shattenkirk really, so maybe we'll have some stuff to talk about with them down the road. But those guys, they're probably not in any rush. They're finding the right fit later in their careers. We'll shift to the draft for a bit. We'll talk about the Bruins first, of course. Dean Letourneau. Anybody who knows me as BC fans knows I am excited about this pick. And there were ways I wasn't going to be excited about this pick. I'll be honest, and I'll explain that. Dean Letourneau, Bruins obviously get their first round pick all the way back after jumping from a couple teams, and this draft the big 6'7", 214-pound center from St. Andrews College prep school at the U18 level, U18 AAA level in Canada. 56 games played, 61 goals, 66 assists, 127 points. He is ginormous, and that ginormous frame is going to need work with skating and body control and strength. But there are factors with him that are very, very exciting. And at the point where guys I talked about, like a Jet Luchenko, who went 13, so he wasn't really close in the end. Michael Haig, pain that he goes to the Canadians, but he goes to his childhood team. Cool for him, I guess. Sasha Boisvert went 18. Cole Baudouin goes right before you because Utah trades up for it. I'd rather have them take the shot on Letourneau than drafting a winger, although there were good wingers. Like if they were to take another BC guy and Teddy Stiga, who went 55th, so that wouldn't really made sense. I wouldn't have been opposed. But there were certain guys at other positions I wouldn't have minded. But you're in a position where you have so few draft picks. Why not take a shot on a guy that's 6'7", 214, and his ceiling is likened to Tage Thompson, who has scored 40 goals in the league.
Pretty good
But
comparison.
right now, and maybe down the road, I'll feel this way. I do not think he will be Tage Thompson. It is hard for another player that looks similar to Tage Thompson to just be Tage Thompson because he is a guy that is capable of scoring 40 to 50 goals and I think 100 points someday in the league. It's going to be hard for Dean Letourneau to follow that
Live
up
up
with
to that,
size.
yeah.
The size, the eventual college route, like Thompson went to UConn, but there's a difference between, I forget where Tage Thompson played before UConn, but Dean Letourneau was going from U18 Canadian prep hockey to college. That is very uncommon. And there's going to be growing pains at BC, but his offensive skills, his shooting ability, his ability to make passes in short spaces is impressive. But things like, handling physicality, skating, strength are going to be things he needs to improve, and he's going to take a while to develop. But if he develops, he's either, hey, maybe he's an awesome third line center, like a nightmare third line center. But I think there's a scenario where if his offensive capabilities keep up to par and he gets bigger and stronger and faster, he can be a second line center on this team. But like I said, I think the Tage Thompson upside is going to be hard to hit, but I don't think the comparisons are bad. But it's a tough ceiling to hit for him. Like I said, if they took him over any of the other guys like Boisvert, Haig, like those guys a little bit ahead, I would have been a little upset because I think they're a little bit more sure thing. Especially, I'm a huge Michael Haig guy, so I think that Letourneau's probably at least 4 years out from the NHL. He's gonna take time, and he mentioned 1 or 2 years at BC. You're not leaving after 1 year, I don't think, Dean.
Yes.
Sorry, pal. I would like him to play probably 3 years at BC, unless by year 2 he's like undeniable. Get
Ready to
him
go.
get
Like
him to Providence,
you can
and even
tell,
if he's
yeah.
undeniable, I would like him to play at least 2 years in college and maybe a full year in the AHL. But if, of course, if his development is undeniable, maybe you give him a shot in the AHL. Right now, I would say I would guess he's 3 or 4 years out from the NHL, maybe closer to 4. One thing that's concerning and can be weeded out of a player, he has been known to take shifts off, which is not great.
Not ideal, yeah.
No, but He's going to Boston College, guys. And
Should
I'm not
never be
saying this
doing it
because
as a
I'm
6'7" guy. You should be going out there every shift looking to pound somebody
I
or
know, yeah.
yeah, just kind of assert your dominance every time you go out
Yeah.
there.
But like he's known for his scoring. He's not known for the nastiness. So
Okay.
maybe that's not a great blend and something he needs to snap out of. Um, but he's going to BC. Like he'll get to have Jerry York come by and bend his ear a
They'll
little
fix
bit.
that. Yeah.
Greg Brown is a Jerry York disciple. He's been around success. There is a great group at BC. Whether Dean will play second line or third line to start, he's going to have to earn it. But I think it's an awesome place to weed out certain habits and grow him as a player. He will see a big leap in competition from prep school players to guys that are 24, 25 years old, some of them. And I think it will be good for him in the long run. The first year could be rough. I'm just preparing people. There are going to probably be rough stretches of this freshman year for Dean Letourneau. He was originally going to go to the USHL, which would have made more sense. But BC wanted him after Will Smith left, and he came in and he's taking this opportunity. He'd kind of be a fool not to.
Absolutely.
There is a player that can be molded into something really awesome here, and I'm glad the Bruins took a shot versus taking a defenseman, which is fine. Like I'm not going to crap on every defenseman that was available or any winger, but I like them taking a shot at a center. They haven't taken a first round center since Johnny Beecher in 2019, Trent Frederick in 2016. Those guys, Beecher and Frederick, more profiled as bottom six guys from the start. You haven't taken a guy of like high upside since Tyler Seguin for a center in the first round. That's crazy.
That
You
long?
needed to do that.
Jesus.
2011, they don't take they haven't taken
That's
centers with
true.
high
Yeah, you
upside.
can't really think back to
Like the biggest upside player they've taken after Seguin since Seguin is Pasternak. He's a winger. Um, and it's funny because Letourneau was the 25th pick, like Pasta was 10 years later. So maybe the writing's on the wall for Letourneau to be a Pasternak level star. I don't know. But man, if you turn him into something, he is going to be an absolute nightmare for teams to play against. But it's gonna take a long time, guys. It's going to take a long time. Where are you at? Are there any concerns with Letourneau? Like similar to what I said,
Yeah, I was gonna say
that
I
you
didn't know
feel
it.
now knowing more about him?
Yeah, the only I was gonna we kind of touched on the I'm not a huge fan of the taking the shift off thing, but again, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, you're going to BC. That's one of the most premier programs in all of college hockey. So that's something I feel like they're like not to to take a bad phrase, they're gonna beat that out of him. Like let's be honest, like he's not gonna be pulling that crap at BC or he's not gonna play. So it's as simple as that. Um, I'm with you. The fact that they took a center, take a chance. I obviously don't know as much about the draft as you do. So if we talk about maybe reaching for a guy or not, like the fact that again they're being proactive, they're looking at positions that they need and they know they need, and again, then center is the biggest one. Like I'm on the flip side of you. If they took a defenseman in the first round, I would have been like, you have enough defensemen.
Yeah.
Like take a wing, see if you pop with one of those. But again, center's the one you should be looking at. So I'm glad, they take the best available one there, it seems like. And I'm curious again. I am a little surprised, like you said, when I see a guy that's 6'7", I'm like, oh, this guy's gonna go out there and bash people's heads in. But if he's a 6'7" guy that can score,
Tons of skill. Yeah.
perfectly fine with that too. So yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I think the Bruins though are making a little bit more of a push to try to get some size on this team, and I like to see that. I know Don Sweeney might have had a comment, either this week or last week or at the end of the season, whenever it was, where he said something along the lines of like, we're not, looking for these type of bigger body guys, but that seems to kind of contradict. Yeah, exactly. You kind of contradict yourself with a lot of these moves. And again, like we talked about earlier, it seems to work for a lot of these teams. The Colorados on the defensive side of things. We know what Florida does to you when they play physical and some of their bigger guys. So I'm perfectly fine with them taking that route and seeing if they can get a couple of these guys to maybe turn into something.
Right. I'm with you, man. Speaking of BC, Ryan Leonard is staying for all the haters that thought he was going to leave.
Very excited about that today.
Very excited. He's him. Smith is Smith. Is what it is. It's what he said. He wants to captain the World Juniors team, which he should. He wants to win a national championship, and he has a very good chance to win the Hobie Baker. Why not stick around and then go in like a man on fire to Washington in the spring, hopefully after a national championship. Elliot Gronewald. I'll be honest, I didn't know who Elliot Gronewald was when they took him. Gonna be real with you. But he's interesting. Cedar Rapids, USHL, 6'2", 201-pound left shot defenseman. 5 goals, 11 assists in 57 games. Going to Quinnipiac in the fall. Another great college program for a prospect to go to. Elite Prospect says he's a fast-moving rush defender with a lockdown off-puck defensive game, modern details, but improving skill level and reads under pressure are musts. Good things, then a little bit concerning things. But maybe those things he needs to improve on aren't like red flags, but like, okay, you're good at these things. Let's see you improve at these things along the way.
Yeah.
And Quinnipiac is a good space to go there. I've seen a couple draft minds say like they like his odds of playing NHL games some days, which is always nice to see. You know, you can see prospect evaluators say, hey, this guy's good at this and this and this, but they don't always say, I see NHL games in this kid's future. So that's good with Gronwald. I will be watching Quinnipiac a little more intent this year with Christopher Pelosi from last year, another guy with size, 6'3" center they took, going there as well. So I'll watch as many Quinnipiac games as I can. Smooth skating, good defending, and his reach are all hallmarks of his game, it sounds like. Kind of sounds like Urho Vakanainen a little to me.
Okay.
So I
There's a
hear
lot
some
of hype around
similarities.
him when he was drafted, or when he came out.
Yeah, and
So
of course, Gronwald isn't a first round pick like Vakanainen was. He actually re-upped for another year with Anaheim the other day, so good for him. I kind of like I hear these things and watched a little bit of video and I kind of see some similarities. Maybe a little more offensive upside than Vakanainen.
okay.
A little bit, but like of course those are things he needs to work on. But like the rush defending, smooth skater, good reach, like good puck disrupting abilities, kind of those things kind of remind me of Vakanainen a little bit. So I like Elliot Gronwald, even though I didn't know who he was. Sounds like a decent player. Maybe he'll spend a couple years at Quinnipiac, and then we go from there. Jonathan Morello. Jonathan Morello is one of the, I didn't know a ton about the mid-round guys this year, but he was one of the few like 2025 guys that I focused on a little bit, which is good. Don't know a ton about the player, but he's a guy I saw some stuff throughout the cycle that interests me. They take him 6'3" center, 192 pounds out of the St. Michael's Buzzers. Great name in the OJHL. 50 games played last year, 25 goals, 32 assists, 57 points. Had 12 goals and 21 points in 11 playoff games. That's pretty sweet. He's going to Clarkson 2 falls from now, and he's going to Dubuque in the USHL next fall. So known for his skating and power. Dom Tiano also said he's a good penalty killer and is well-rounded. Dom also said that his consistency is one thing he needs to work on. But a powerful skating center that's 6'3" and has some offensive capabilities, I like to take that shot in the 5th round any day. I saw a few people, I might be wrong, 2 big databases had him ranked 95th and 100th, and you got him at 154.
Hell of a steal if that's the case.
Maybe he's a steal. I'll be honest. Clarkson's a great program, but this kid with this package of talents, I kind of hope he goes to a bigger program for college. That can happen, but he seems pretty locked in on Clarkson. They had a coaching change recently, and he said after the draft that he doesn't plan on moving his commitment elsewhere. So maybe he's locked in on Clarkson. Still a good program. Don't get me wrong. Another guy on a much different scale that I did not know about, like Gronwald, is Loke Johansson. Don't know a thing about him really. He's a 6'3", 214-pound defenseman. He had 33 games played last year for AIK J20 in the J20 National League and had 13 points, 5 goals, 8 assists. He actually, one thing I do know is that he's big, and he was selected by Moncton today in the CHL import draft. So maybe he comes over to North America, which would be cool. Gives them a little easier way to watch him. They do this with the last pick every year now. Jackson Edward, big defenseman who hits people. They take with their last pick of the draft. Jackson Edward looks like they might have a player in Jackson Edward as a 7th rounder. They took Christian Kostadinsky last year, who actually toured BC the other day, which is pretty interesting. Speaking about that, maybe he'll go there next year. I think he's playing the USHL this year. And they take another big defenseman that hits this year in Johansson. So we'll see where it goes. Anything stand out to you about these fellas, these last 3 guys?
Nothing at all, because I don't know. If you say you don't know a whole lot about these guys, then I know absolutely nothing. So
darts at the dartboard.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was just joking around, like, okay, we started with a college guy, then we get another college guy going to Quinnipiac, then it's another college guy going to Clarkson, and Johansson broke the streak. But maybe he'll come over to North America and play for the Moncton Wildcats. That would be pretty neat. Overall, 4 picks, don't really have any complaints. I'm gonna wait and see.
All you really can
Status
do.
quo.
Like,
I don't think anybody's really too pissed about this draft class, and I
no, I
get
haven't
why.
seen anything too negative. And
Maybe some people
again,
don't
though,
love
like when you don't have
Letourneau,
a ton
but
of picks to begin with, you just traded back into the first round. Like, I think a lot of people are
yeah,
just still kind of in on that. Like you
yeah, you
were,
got the first rounder. Like,
yeah, you were happy enough to get back into the first round, and you kind of see what comes after that.
right. All right, let's switch to some notes in the draft. San Jose, one of the better hauls. Celebrini, Sam Dickinson, the big rangy athletic defenseman. Igor Chernyshov, who sounds like might already be working to opt out of his contract in Russia, and he got drafted in the import draft as well by Saginaw, who's very good. So maybe we see Igor Chernyshov play in North America very soon, which is great for the Russian factor because sometimes they can take a little while to come over. I'm sure San Jose is thrilled about that. And Leo Saline Wallenius, who easily could have won in the first round. That's an awesome first 4 draft picks for San Jose. Really love that. I like how them and Chicago are both rebuilding, to be honest. San Jose gets a little bit of minus points for all the salary retention they got going, but you gotta, do that to make things work
Yeah,
sometimes. Chicago, another team with a lot of picks early. Artem Levchinov, who's one of my favorite players in the draft. Sasha Boisvert, everybody knows who's been listening the last few weeks. I love Sasha Boisvert. He went much earlier than I thought. And Merrick Vanacker, who I like to hop into the late first round. They get all 3. I think you get a guy that can play top pairing defense, a guy that can be a middle 6 center, good one, and a hard nosed winger that can, be an NHLer. So I like that for Chicago. Beckett Seneca took the spotlight of the first round, though. Says, what the fuck? Holy shit, after he gets drafted by Anaheim, a team that he did not meet with at all in the pre-draft process. They released a shirt with his reaction today, and it says, what the, and then it says the duck logo. So that's going to sell
that's
like
pretty good. Yeah,
hotcakes.
absolutely.
Awesome in the Anaheim community. They have this after getting new jerseys, finally getting rid of those horrible jerseys. Things might be looking up in Anaheim, even though they have spent very little money despite having the most cap space. Man, I saw a video saying he is skinny as fuck. And that's natural for a guy that's grown 4 inches in the past 2 years. But
I'd say so. Yeah.
they took a very big risk on Seneca, and he's awesome. This is not anything against the talent of the player, but passing up on a Demidov or a Lindstrom or Aziz Bouillon, who I lost a ton of money on, because thanks to Jeff
Yeah.
Merrick.
Yep.
Jeff Merrick is a sleeper agent for sports books. It's
Guess
crazy.
so. Investigate that guy with all the people.
Oh
Who
my
was the NBA
God,
player that
man.
just got arrested, or not arrested, got charged? Something I saw today.
Jonte Porter.
Yeah, investigate
Yeah.
this guy for everyone
Craziness,
throwing their
dude.
money away. Jesus.
Come on, Jeff. I like Jeff too.
Mhm.
That was crazy. Man, Anaheim is gonna get lit up if he does
How
not
do you
pan out.
draft a guy that you don't meet with? Like that's just not Anaheim. That's every sport. Like I don't. And I
Pat
know
Verbeek
it
is a
doesn't
weird
happen a
guy.
lot, but
Pat Verbeek is a weird guy, but this is extra weird.
I feel like you're
But
just
I
at that
mean,
point, like
he was the
closing your
biggest
eyes and
riser.
just throw a name or throw a dart at the board and see
Right.
what name you hit. Like, oh, we
He
didn't
was
meet with
the
that
biggest
guy.
riser for a reason. And
I
there
guess
was
so.
speculation even 2 weeks ago that he might go third. So I guess he did. And those people speculating were right. Ivan Demidov to Montreal, kind of the Matvei Michkov of this year's draft. Seems like he's going to come over soon. Matvei Michkov coming over as well after they drafted him, he might take 3 years. He signed yesterday, I believe. So Demidov, they believe, will be in North America by the spring. So sucks, really sucks. You add him as a lethal scoring talent to a group with Cole Caulfield, who I still think can be awesome, is pretty awesome, but hasn't hit his ceiling. Ivan Demidov is a great pick, and I think a lot of teams are going to, no, maybe just Anaheim actually are just going to regret this. Maybe Chicago, but I have faith in Levchinov too. Tidja Ginla, good way to get hype around your new franchise. Drafting a Ginla. That's what Utah did. One of the best pure scorers in the draft. Love the pick of Tidja Ginla. Definitely a bit of a surprise, but not really if you look at the talent. Did expect them to go with a defenseman, though, but they did take a defenseman high last year in Dmitry Simashev, which also surprised people much more than Iginla. They really went up the ladder for him. I took Carter Yakimchuk as my surprise pick of the top 10 from Ottawa away. I took it out. I put Seneca there because he was rising. Seneca went third. I wish I kept Carter Yakimchuk at Ottawa because I had him there. He goes to Ottawa. That was surprising. Maybe they're going to regret passing on Zane Parekh, but this is a guy that scored 30 goals last year in the WHL and plays with the mean streak. So it is surprising for an Ottawa team that's taken some surprising picks in the past year. So hopefully this one doesn't burn them. Berkeley Catton, one of my favorite players in the draft at 8, is a steal. Another team I thought was going to take a defenseman in Seattle, but I mean, they just clearly felt Catton's dynamic skill was too much to pass up on. He's so good, and this pick is going to look great. The big Russian, 6'7" Artem, I almost said the other Russian, Anton Salayev goes 10th to New Jersey, and that is awesome value if they can, really turn him into the guy he's looking to become after playing pretty well in the KHL against men. So we'll see how Artie does, or not Artie. Still, no, they're two Russian defensemen with the names that start with A, so I'm mixing up their fucking names. But yeah, Salayev, another pick that could look really good. Zeev Buium, this was the story of the first round, a guy that some thought, thanks to Jeff Merrick, was going to go third. Mm-hmm. Really could be the best defenseman in the draft. Goes 12. Philly trades down a spot. There was speculation that maybe partially they did this because Zeev Buium is represented by the same people that represent Cutter Gauthier. So maybe they didn't want to deal with that potential situation again. Mm-hmm. They fucked up. Let's be honest, they fucked up, and that's nothing against Jet Luchenko, who I like a lot. You have a great defenseman that rose up draft boards like Zeev Buium for excellent reason, and now he might be playing a little pissed off, and he's a winner. He's won 3 times in the past calendar year. Yeah, you're going to regret that. Zeev Buium goes 12 to Minnesota. He will be the future defensive partner of Brock Faber, and that could be one of the best defensive pairings in the league for 10, 15 years. Just incredible for Minnesota. You give up that 3rd-round pick to move up a spot next year. 3rd-round pick from next year to move up a spot any day of the week. Luchenko goes 13th as a result. First Bruins hopeful off the board pretty early. Another guy that was expected to rise. Tarek Parashak at 17 was surprising because I think Washington was probably going to go defense here, and they clearly like the 105 points that Tarek Parashak scored in the WHL a lot. But they have a lot of right wingers now, so hopefully they have room for all of them someday. Ryan Leonard, Miroshnichenko can move to the left, maybe Leonard. But Parashak is very highly skilled. Trevor Connolly, controversial player. His fall ends at 19, so naturally drafted by Vegas. He'll be traded in 2 years, probably, maybe less, because they drafted David Edstrom last year and traded him within a year to San Jose for Tomas Hertl. And yeah, so Trevor Connolly, supremely skilled, will go to Providence College. We'll see how he pans out. Cole Eiserman goes the next pick. Another guy that was expected to fall. Amazing goal scorer. Doesn't do a whole lot else. Goes to the Islanders. Michael Hague, the Montreal Canadiens, like I said on the show, they trade up. I wonder if they steal a center from the Bruins. They steal my favorite. They steal Michael Hague at 21. And that sucks. Yeah, very much. Cole Baudouin goes 24 right before the Bruins. Utah traded up to get him. Not as disappointed about not getting Baudouin as other people, but it would have been a nice player to get, but at least the Bruins took a center. Matvei Grudin, interesting player today. He goes in the first round that a lot of people didn't expect. Seemingly a Michigan guy, but goes number 1 to Val d'Or in the import draft today. So now there's speculation that he could bounce from Michigan, a place that he is jokingly said online he's not super committed to schoolwork. So maybe this wasn't the plan all along. We'll go to play in the QMJHL instead and give Michigan a huge loss to their very good incoming recruiting class. So yeah, maybe he'll go to Val d'Or and play in Canada. I love Matvei Grudin. Leafs trade back to 31 from 23, and they reach on Ben Danford. I don't think Ben Danford was really considered a first rounder by many people. Good player. I think was he Saginaw, so he might have got some good playoff experience. Could be wrong. But they trade back and take what was largely considered a reach. So we'll see what happens for Toronto there. Dean Letourneau, to a lot of people, was considered a reach too. So, it's not like the Bruins didn't. The first goalie in a not great goalie draft goes at 34. A 21-year-old goalie, Ilya Nabokov, goes to Colorado. This is my thought on this. Ilya Nabokov was a highly rated goalie. He's 21, so he's ahead of the curve of 18-year-old goalies that could be here. Does Colorado think he's going to play in the NHL in like a year or two? Maybe they do.
Yeah,
and he's Russian.
They
so
see something that people don't.
Russians have a little different mindset, so maybe he's tapped enough and good enough to be good and play for the Avalanche in short order. One of the weirdest moves of the past week or so, Beck Mellenstein goes from Washington to Buffalo, a fringe 4th liner in the NHL, who apparently people in the NHL say they hate playing against him. That's part of the reason for this. He goes for like the 42nd overall pick. Why are you giving up a 42nd overall pick for a fourth liner? I don't know. But
Beats me.
that's that. And the Sabres had back-to-back picks there, so they traded one of them. Cole Hudson, brother of Lane, goes to Washington. Really like that value in the second round. Nikita Artemonov, such a Carolina pick, falls to 50 to Carolina. They'll turn him into something they love, taking Russians that everybody's like, oh, of course, Carolina got him, that Russian. They'll turn Nikita Artemonov into something. And I think this will be a steal. Nothing too crazy. I usually pick a couple mid-round guys I love. I do like Clark Caswell to Seattle, but Hagen Burrows is, I think he might have won Mr. Hockey in Minnesota. He goes 128 to Tampa, and they also got Noah Steen, who I liked watching in the World Juniors this year. So there's a couple late picks I like. Steen won 199. And for Bruins fans, if you didn't know, Miro the Hero, Miroslav Chatan's son, who's 6'7", was traded up for in the 7th round to be acquired by Washington. They traded a pick next year to get him. So Miro the Hero's son is a Washington Capital. Just a little fun fact there. At the end of the draft recap, Miro the Hero's son is a Capital. And do we have anything else to talk about? We do. Oh my God.
Missed all free agency.
I know it's crazy. I'm not going to read every one of these, but we'll just catch up on some stuff. Sean Durzi, in a big, I put Arizona. I think I put Arizona for every Utah move because I'm still not used to it. Sean Durzi stays in Utah. Shouldn't say stays in Utah because it's his first year in Utah, but he re-ups for 4 years. Patrick Kane, a big one, stays in Detroit. Maybe he went to the Rangers. That's what people were thinking. That was one popular spot, but he goes for $4 million to Detroit, can make up to 6.5. Sam Reinhart, big one, 8 by 69 million, 8.65 per year, stays in Florida, makes a lot of sense. Timothy Liljegren re-ups with Toronto, even though being in some trade rumors, 2 by 6. Max Domi, as much as I hate him, 3.75 a year for him is not too bad in Toronto. Joseph Woll stays there as well, just under 11 million for 3 years. We'll see how him and Anthony Stolarz do as their new duo. Elias Samsonov, speaking of Toronto goalies, went to Vegas for a year, so we'll see how he does there. OEL, where we got a lot of Toronto moves. 4 by 14 goes from the Cup champions to Toronto. I really like what Toronto did. I don't think it's going to fix their team. They're a little top heavy forward wise now, losing Bertuzzi, but he goes for 4 years to Chicago. OEL gives him someone else besides Morgan Riley that can move the puck and transition it pretty well. He bounced back really nice in that 1 year deal in Florida. He goes to Toronto for 4 years. He's now getting paid by Utah, Vancouver, and Toronto. So that's pretty sick. Yeah, a lot of retention going on. And a buyout. So a retention and a buyout. Brandon Montour, another guy that goes from departs from Florida.
It's a big loss for
7
Florida.
by 50. Big loss. Big loss. They've currently only replaced him with keeping Dmitry Kulikov around and Nate Schmidt for a year. And I like Nate Schmidt, but he was bought out. And Uvis Belinskis might play too. That is a real person. Brandon Montour, 7 by 50 to Seattle. That's a big pickup for Seattle. I like it. Yep. I think he might not be as good as he is in Florida, but that's a very much a big plus add for Seattle, and I like them throwing that money at him. And they had to replace Justin Schultz, and they did that and then some. Jacob Slavin, this one was speculated for a while, but he sticks around for 6.5 a year with Carolina. One of the best deals in NHL already. He's amazing. Teravainen leaves Carolina, goes back to Chicago where he used to play for 3 years. Igor Sharangovich gets a 5-year, $28.75 million extension with Calgary. There's always one fourth liner that goes for too much money. Nothing against him, but Corrali was that guy a few years ago. Jakub Trenin gets $3.5 million a year for 4 years with Minnesota, who's not necessarily spry with cap space with the Suter and Parise buyouts. By the way, Suter got bought out again, so he's getting paid by 3 teams now too, depending on who he signs with next. So that's that. William Carrier, 6-year, $2 million per deal with Carolina. Just an analytics darling fourth liner. He'll be annoying as fuck how good he is for them. The big one, and this wasn't it. I actually somehow forgot to put Marchessault on the list here, but we'll mention Marchessault. I wrote a lot of signings down, guys. Steven Stamkos, 4 by 32 with the Nashville Predators. The amount of disrespect he received from Tampa Bay is staggering. He deservedly moves on. He goes to a team that loaded up. I imagine partially because they want to build an awesome team around him. He is already a big part of that team. He goes to Nashville. Didn't think I'd ever see the day Steven Stamkos left the Tampa Bay Lightning,
Right.
but it became more a real possibility in the last month. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he fell into the same category as like Crosby and Ovechkin for me. Like that's a guy that's gonna play for one team his entire career, have his number retired, all that stuff, and then to see him go and to not that like Nashville's a crappy situation by any means, but like he's gonna be one of those guys that like when people do the lists of like, oh, this guy, remember when this guy played here? Like this guy looks weird in this jersey. Stamkos, I feel like is gonna fall right into that. Like Stamkos in a Nashville Predators uniform, like that's gonna take some time to get used to.
Weird. It is gonna be weird. But yeah, they did not stop there. They signed Brady Shea. I actually got to pull up Marchessault's contract. Um, Brady Shea for 7 by 49. That could age really bad.
Yeah, it's a massive contract.
It's huge. Just shows how you have to pay for free agents, but I think they'll get good years out of him for the start, maybe the first half of it. Jonathan Marchessault looked like he was going to New Jersey. Didn't happen. Nashville snuck in and got it done. I can't believe Vegas didn't do this, and I know they're strapped to the cap, but like 5.5 for Jonathan Marchessault was really reasonable.
That's kind of low.
He
Yeah.
scored 42 goals last year.
Yeah.
Stamkos,
Pretty
again,
good.
he scored 40 at 33 years old last year. And you're nitpicking nickel and diming these guys. So Nashville brings in Marchessault, Shea, and Stamkos. Really serious about contending. Didn't get Brett Pesce like some people expected, but he goes to New Jersey. I think it might have been another guy I forgot to write down in the outline, but he goes for 5 years to New Jersey. Just a heads up if you didn't know. Also, Nashville extends Alex Carrier for 3 years. Another guy that they thought might go to the market. He didn't. Big moves for Nashville. Big things going on in Nashville. Anthony Stolarz, like I mentioned earlier, 2 by 5 in Toronto. We'll see how he does. He seems pretty confident in himself. He'll be battling for minutes with Joseph Woll. Speaking of Seattle earlier, Chandler Stevenson, 7 by 6.25 with Seattle. Don't really know if I expected this to Seattle. Maybe he was going to be a Nashville guy, reunite with Barry Trotz, who we won a cup with. And obviously they wanted to spend on a center. If they see Stamkos as a center or not, maybe they wanted some guy that can play center. In some ways, I like this a little better than the Lindholm deal, but I think the Lindholm deal has more upside and less risk in a way. But from the money difference, I wouldn't have hated this if Lindholm went to Seattle on his deal he got with the Bruins and Stevenson went to Boston on his deal he got with Seattle, if that makes sense. I don't think it's the worst trade-off in the world in my mind, but I am happy with how things went. Were you surprised to see like this Chandler Stevenson deal at all? I think a lot of people were.
See, again, I don't know enough about the player to be like, and NHL contracts to be like, oh wow, that's kind of a surprise. But like your reaction, a couple other people's I saw was it did seem like this was kind of one that threw some people for a little bit of a loop.
Yeah, like you drafted Matty Beniers 2nd overall, 2021. You drafted Shane Wright 4th overall, another center, 2022.
Creating a log jam here, yeah.
I don't know, but Chandler Stevenson's a guy I think is easily transferable to the wing, so maybe that's what ends up happening. And Shane Wright still has some work to do to live up to his 4th overall pick status, once exceptional status in WHL. This one is an L. This is a clear L. Matt Roy to Washington for 7 years and $40.25 million. I get paying for free agents. Matt Roy is not worth $5 million. Matt Roy is good. On the free agent market, it makes sense that he gets $5 million. Matt Roy, to me, is about a $4.25 million defenseman. And you gave him this for 7 years. And I was loving everything Washington was doing. Even with the risk of the Dubois thing. I like the shot they took. Like, I think, maybe that he's just out of LA. Maybe it fixes. Maybe it is. Maybe it doesn't. That's the one big one. But this one, no. This is a bad deal.
See, if you asked me your Stevenson question about Roy, I would have told you like this was the one I saw all across Twitter that was the same exact thing of like, what the fuck are you doing, Washington? What is this? What is this contract you're signing this guy for? So again, don't know a lot about the player, but everyone kind of had the same reaction of holy crap, this is going to be one of the worst contracts of the entire offseason.
Yeah, now we understand why LA didn't want to give him this.
Guess so.
Yeah. Chris Tanev to Toronto. This is a deal that might warrant some little investigation from the NFL and NHL down the road because they're trying to add extra years to kind of finagle the cap a little bit down the road with the payment structure. Frank Saravalli said the NHL might not love this down the road, so
Was
watch
this the
out,
guy I
Toronto.
saw the tweet of like this guy, this Tanev guy is a prime long-term IR? I thought I saw somebody tweet something like
Yes,
that out.
like
Like
that
this is
type of
gonna be a
thing,
finagled,
structuring
yeah.
the money.
Yep.
They won't like
Okay.
that. And we'll see what happens down the road. But this just encapsulates further what I like about Toronto, and what they did with their defense. They added another guy that can break pucks out in OEL. They have one of the best shutdown guys in the league now in Chris Tanev, even at his advancing age. I think this is a huge ad for Toronto.
Well, it's
Like
about
really
time they
huge.
address their needs, seeing that they've
They
needed
need
defense and goaltending our entire lifetime, it seems like. And
they needed moves like this. But you lose Bertuzzi, you might trade Marner. We'll see, how the forward core looks.
that would
And
be kind of
Nick Robertson wants out too, so you might have to trade him.
that would be kind of funny is if Toronto they finally get some lockdown defenders, and then have to blow up their offense, and then their offense
Yeah.
sucks for the next 5 years, and they have one of the most lockdown defenses, but you're losing games 1-0, 2-0.
Hey, who did I say when we first talked about Marner? Carolina. Guess who Carolina hasn't traded still? Who I mentioned at the time? Marty Nietzsche's. That's the trade I like.
That'd be scary.
That's the trade I like. That's the trade I
Okay.
like. Seattle's potentially out of the market now. Utah could still do it. Maybe he goes to Utah. I still like Carolina as a team to emerge from Mitch Marner. Some old friends went to Florida along with Boquist, Tomas Nosek,
Traitors.
and AJ Greer going to Florida. Could realistically be the fourth line, those three, but probably not. I think Jonah Gadjevich will be in there as well. But a lot of former Bruins going to Florida. Colin Delia, shout out Merrimack guy.
He's still
Goes to
kicking
Edmonton.
around the NHL, huh?
Still kicking around. He'll play.
Good
He'll be
for
like
him.
an AHL starter, call up guy. But good for deals. A deal for deals. Yanni Hakanpää, another guy I liked for Toronto, but I didn't include him in the original cast because he has a knee injury that might not allow him to play NHL hockey again. But he's a great player, like really good,
Gamble and a half.
really good shutdown guy for a third pairing at cheap money for 2 years. Might not play, so that stinks if you're Toronto. He is long-term IR bound potentially. Shane Gostisbehere goes back to Carolina for a 3x9.6, and Sean Walker also joins the Hurricanes at 5x18. Both great deals. God damn it, Carolina! I hate how they do this. Joel Edmondson, Bruins passed on this one. Thank God. I would rather give the Zadorov contract than this.
Not been high on.
This is an awful contract, but like it's funny because they let the Rory contract go to Washington, and then they use some of that money to give a bad contract to a worse player.
Makes sense.
I don't know if Rob Blake is it in LA, but he did get rid of the Pierre-Luc Dubois contract and admit the L on that one. So, UC Saros, 8x61.92 million in Nashville, and Yaroskarov wants out, and I don't blame him. But
yeah,
2 great AHL seasons for a great, phenomenal goalie prospect that was drafted high a few years ago. They apparently wanted a top 5 pick for him. That is batshit crazy
insane.
for a guy who's not played in the NHL.
We have no idea this guy's going to pan out, but we want a massive haul for him.
Maybe it was a big thing. Maybe it wasn't just a scare-off, but holy shit. And they should trade him because wasting him. They also, I forget who they signed as the backup. I think it's Scott Wedgwood. They need to trade him. They need to trade him now because get the value while you can.
Never going to see the light of day.
Shout out to my childhood neighbor, Mike Hardman. 2-year deal with the Devils. Shout out to Hardy. He did tell me the Bruins were interested, so that's funny. But the fit was better 2 years in New Jersey. So a little scoop there from an old friend. Jackson Nika, old friend, probably flew under the radar to some, goes to LA.
No, he was still kicking around either.
He is. Maybe he'll battle for a roster spot, but maybe he's just an AHLer for the foreseeable future. Tyler Toffoli to San Jose. Guys won 2 cups. Why not go get big money and
go cash
play
out,
with Celebrini and Smith and any other of their awesome prospects they've got coming in. For Chris Blackie, if he's listening, the Toffoli to Boston dream is dead for another few years.
I think at this point that is just dead. I don't want to rain on his parade or anything or dash any hopes, but like that might be dead entirely.
Right. Yeah. Jeff Skinner to Edmonton. I liked him as a low cost Bruins option, but he goes to Edmonton. I don't think he would have picked the Bruins over playing with Connor
God,
McDavid.
no, nope.
They get Victor Arvidsson too. I like what they've done. There's rumors that they might or should buy out Evander Kane. I don't know if they will. But yeah, Jeff Skinner could absolutely thrive and score a bunch of goals in Edmonton, help drive play. Edmonton could be scary. It could be. They also signed one of the worst defensemen in the league, and Josh Brown, old friends. So they, I don't know why they did that. Earl Vacanine, like we said, 6th round of Anaheim. Montreal extends Uriah Slafkovsky early, 8 by 60.8. Could go well, could go poorly, but maybe it's like a Jake Sanderson thing where we're talking about Jake Sanderson being extended early for lots of money, and that has worked out pretty well so far a year in. Maybe Slafkovsky really hits his stride. Sean Monahan to Columbus. He seems to be, like, I'm healthy again. I'm going to feel the best I've ever felt. I'm going to play the best hockey in my career. So maybe he does that in Columbus. Victor Hedman gets an extension at the same exact deal that Steven Stamkos got in Nashville.
That's kind of a kick in the balls. Wow.
Yeah, they really disrespected him.
100% on purpose.
That's gotta be weird for Hedman too. Like, they're obviously friends. Now he's gonna take the C from Stamkos.
Yeah, on the exact same contract. Like
they're really
awkward.
dumpstering themselves. They really are. It's tough. It's really tough. But I don't really care.
Yeah.
If
Tampa Bay blows themselves up from within, that's shed a tear. Yeah.
Exactly. Pavel Buchnevich, 6 by 48, great deal in St. Louis. Would have been an interesting guy to hit the market next summer. Vladimir Tarasenko, a little bit before the show, 2 by 9.5. Guys won 2 cups, wants to go play with some talented centers in Detroit and help them get to the playoffs now. Tarasenko, Larkin, Kane, maybe?
Ooh. That'd be fun to watch.
Let's get to some trades now. I'm not going to go through all these trades, but the big one at first. Mikhail Sergachev was the big cap dump move in Tampa. Goes to Utah for J.J. Moser, who's an RFA who Tampa now needs to sign. Connor Geekie, brother of Morgan, very tall, large individual, missing teeth fella. Pretty good prospect. He was so good that Arizona traded up 16 spots a couple years ago in the draft to get him in the first round. And he is big and he is powerful and he can score. Pick 199, who's one of the guys I liked, Noah Steen, they took, ironically enough, in the 2025 second. No salary retention on Sergachev. Imagine he was pretty surprised. Tanner Jeannot, a guy that Tampa gave up 5 draft picks to get, is already gone about 2 years later for a 4th and a 2nd. Good job, Tampa. But they got cap flexibility they needed. I also forgot to mention Anthony Duclair. I really forgot some contracts here. He signed for 4 years with the Islanders. Could be a pretty good fit there. Kevin Hayes coming back to the East Coast, goes to Pittsburgh in a cap dump. Logan Thompson to Washington for a couple picks. Paul Cotter in a 3rd to New Jersey for Alexander Holtz, who will get his opportunity to play more, and Akira Schmid, who Vegas already let go. So that was kind of just to help out New Jersey, I guess. But Holtz could really find his stride playing more as a top 10 pick, former top 10 pick, but in Vegas. They're going to need him too because their forward depth is taking a hit. Chris Tanev's rights, we talked about that. Jake Gensel's rights, for anyone who didn't know, that led to Tampa signing him for 7 by 9. Go for a 3rd round pick. Tampa will take that all day to replace Stamkos. That sucks. Like, that sucks that they get to replace Stamkos with Jake Gensel, another big playoff performer. A guy that, I'll say this, in my opinion, last time the Penguins won the Cup, he should have won the Conn Smythe as a rookie over Evgeny Malkin.
I think a lot of people shared that. That sounds familiar. I feel like a lot of people kind of echoed that same thought process because he's going to be
so annoying. Yeah. He's going to be so annoying in the playoffs, but he would have been equally annoying in Carolina, so I guess it's fine. Another Merrimack shout out, Jonathan Kovacevic gets a new landing spot in New Jersey. He goes for a conditional 4th in 2026. Good luck to him. Did I not say that Ottawa is going to screw this up with a guy they trade for having to dump again in Chychrun? Nick Jensen in a 2026 3rd for Jacob Chychrun, who they were apparently looking for another 1st and a 2nd for.
For which I texted you, did Ottawa trade him for literally nothing? And you responded with a resounding, yup. That was the end of that conversation.
The Senators don't help themselves.
No,
they really
not
don't.
The slightest.
Riley Smith on the move again, goes with 25% retention to the Rangers. Like that for the Rangers a lot. Only a 2027 2nd and a conditional 2025 5th. Really good. Really like Riley Smith. Robbie Fabry before the show got cap dumped to Anaheim, who needs to get to the cap floor for a goaltending prospect, Cage Alexander, and a 2025 fifth goes to Anaheim as well to dump that money. We had some history in the NHL today. Jessica Campbell
cool to see, yeah.
becomes the first female coach in NHL history after being named an assistant coach for the Kraken. Dan Bilesma helps fill out his staff. I don't know if she replaces Jay Leach laterally, who left for the Bruins, but either way, pretty cool to see some history being made in the NHL. Best of luck to Jessica. I mean, she's going to have a lot of eyes on her for aspiring females in the NHL world and the sports world, and for Kraken fans. So very cool to see. This is one that's been speculated for a while. So it's not if you're keeping up, entirely unexpected. But I don't know a lot about her, but it seems very well deserved. And I'm excited to see what she does because it's a very historical moment for the league. Any last thoughts on that or anything that happened in free agency? Anything that stands out to you?
No, I mean, the one we kind of touched on when it happened, I was thinking the two Tampa Bay moves that you talked about, the Jeannot and why can't I think of the defenseman's name now? I'm trying to find him. Sergachev. Thank you. That one those two moves I kind of thought when I texted you when they happened, I'm like, oh, is that interesting? That's kind of interesting. Maybe opening up or trying to open up some more cap space for Stamkos. And then like we saw happen, yeah, that was not the case. They still decided to treat him like crap. It is interesting though. I mean, if you are going to lose, a consummate pro like he is and a top talent like Jake Gensel's not a bad replacement. Again, I'm with you. That one stinks that they're able to get, Stamkos out of there, but bring in a pretty good talent to replace him. So that'll be interesting to see how that deal works out. Or I can't imagine there's going to be a lot of fallout. Like we're not going to have like they lost the locker room because you let Stamkos walk type of thing. That they'll be fine. But it was interesting. That was one of my big takeaways from this whole thing. Obviously, with all the moves that happened, funny to say that, but like the way that Stamkos his tenure ended in Tampa Bay is such a weird thing. Because again, it's not like he was a guy that was like ever had any sort of problems or like had to be disciplined for anything or like was outspoken about things being maybe wrong in Tampa Bay. Like he seemed to be like a Bergeron, like a captain among, one of the better captains you could have. So that was kind of weird to see how that all went down.
It was, but yeah, I mean, really is wild. You made a good point with like the Crosby stuff too. Like this felt like a guy that was going to play Tampa forever. But it's now up to the next wave is what it is. Maybe they suck a little more because of it. That would be funny. I doubt it. They're Tampa.
No, it's Tampa always them and Carolina always find a way to.
We talked about it with the McDonough trade too. Maybe they're adding this money when they traded for Ryan McDonough to help their defense because they're preparing to lose a guy like Stamkos. But then they replaced Stamkos with fucking Jake Gensel. So
yeah, almost instantly.
Fucking assholes. Let's get to the draft in the NBA unless we want to talk about White and Tatum first.
No, we can run down kind of how things have broken out. The draft obviously happened before free agency, and then we'll touch on all the signings. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the draft because the Celtics only made 2 picks, and they were, end of the first round, basically end of the second round. Still had a chance to do one of the funniest things in NBA history. I'm a little upset they passed on it, but, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. But we'll start with the 30th.
They would have lost Bronny to Australia.
Yeah, it's okay.
Who the fuck cares? He's not going to play in the NBA for the Celtics anyways.
No. Yeah, I mean, we'll touch on that. I don't know. You have any thoughts on that? And anything that we kind of already talked about on last week's episode? Now that we do know that Bronny is an LA Laker, signed a 4-year, I think $7.9 million contract either today or yesterday.
I think
which pretty much guarantees him a roster spot. That's the one big thing that kind of has come out of that.
Yeah, last year's like pick at the same spot got like $700K or something. I thought I saw that number, could be wrong, but the Bronny stuff I watched because like it's history. I wanted to see how it went down. Oh my God, the suck fest. As expected, the suck fest was crazy. Yep. They brought on this guy that's like close. I already forget the guy's name. That were just sucking him the whole time. Really just shameless, embarrassing stuff. It's going to be obnoxious. And I think Bronny's even going to get tired of it. I feel
bad for we talked about this off air. I feel so bad for the kid. Like he is not getting set up for failure. Cause I mean, obviously the kid's got a great chance to be in the NBA. But we talked about it last week. He's not ready to be in the NBA. I mean, there are plenty of other college players that are.
This kid had cardiac arrest.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you don't know what his physical condition's like. He's not. People have said he's not big enough.
An issue, like a real issue down the road.
Absolutely. And
Like
again, like who
it's a
knows how much he's
crazy
gonna play? Like I told you
thing.
the other day, like if the Lakers are smart, you put him in final 2 minutes of a game when you're up or down 30 points. Like you're not playing this kid 15 minutes a night. That would be stupid.
No.
And if they do that, then it's 100% LeBron James runs the Lakers. It's not Jeannie Buss's team. It's not JJ Redick's team, which I already don't think it is to begin with. Like he's just a pawn for LeBron
Yeah.
James.
On for
Um,
LeBron.
yeah, I tried
Start a
not to
hashtag.
say it for the
Start the
rhyme, but
hashtag.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, it will be interesting to see how it plays out. But again, I wish the kid kind of like there was part of me that kind of wished like a team did take him. Just kind of do your own thing. You don't have to be in the shadow of LeBron as much as he wants to play with you and make it about himself. Because like we saw, I texted you or sent it to you on Twitter when it happened. Like a day later, the stupid tweet he had where he had to read back out that Bronny James was drafted by the LA Lakers. I'm like, dude, that happened a day or two ago. Like, well, why
That
are
was
you
like a
bringing it
Magic
up now?
Johnson
Like,
tweet when like Magic Johnson will tweet news like 3 days after it happens,
yeah,
as if
his
he
give
just
give
found
his
out.
reactions to something that no one cares about anymore. Yeah,
Like, oh,
like
thanks, Magic.
yeah, thank you for your input. That's 3 days, 72 hours late. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, back on the Celtics, two moves they make. First round, the 30th pick, they get Baylor Shireman out of
Great.
Creighton. Thank you. I was gonna say I thought I had it written down, but I have the stats right in front of me. 2023, 2024, all Big East first team recipient, 6'6", 23 years old. He was all 4 years of college. I thought I heard somebody say a fifth year guy, but that doesn't seem to be the case with the, oh yeah, I can't, brain's not working. 5 years,
Okay.
3 years at South Dakota State, 2 years at Creighton. His last year at Creighton, he averaged 18.5 points per game, 9 rebounds exactly, and shot 38.1% from deep. Kind of looked at as a 3-and-D guy. RotoWire, I was looking up, trying to get a scouting report on the guy, anything to talk about here. They kind of project him as a Kevin Huerter type, and if Celtics fans know Kevin Huerter, like he's a guy that plays pretty well against the Celtics whenever the Celtics played the Hawks or the Kings, wherever he is now. But they see him as that, see Shireman rather as that type of player. If his defense develops, that'll be the big thing for him. Some people I've seen kind of see Shireman maybe as a Sam Hauser replacement. We do know Hauser had his club option picked up, but haven't really heard anything about any sort of long-term extension yet. And if I'm being honest, if there's a guy that's expendable on this roster right now, it's probably Sam Hauser. Like you can find guys that can knock down threes. Like I saw the video of this kid, and the first thing I thought of, to be honest, was lefty Sam Hauser. Like plays a very similar spot up shooter type of thing. A little bit better on defense, it seems like. Much better rebounder. You're not a bigger guy because Hauser I think is 6'7". Shireman's only 6'6". But it seems like he plays bigger than he is, which obviously works out well for the Celtics. We know, Derek White has had no problem doing that. So again, right now you're kind of just going off of hype videos and highlight videos of this kid. So I'm excited to see what he brings. A lot of people seem to think he's a guy that maybe might be able to contribute, not right away because it's going to take some time. But wouldn't surprise you if you saw this kid a couple times this season in a pinch if the Celtics need somebody because the ability is there. And again, the 5 years in college, he is more ready, it seems like, than most kids obviously coming out of
Right.
coming into the draft or coming out of the draft and coming into the league rather.
Yeah, and all I knew about these guys beforehand was seeing them play in March Madness, and Watson's a second round pick, so we'll talk about him in a bit. But
Mhm.
I like Sharman and I like Kevin Herter, so I like the comparison.
As do
I
I.
watched the
Yep.
highlights. He's a quick spot up shooter, shoots lefty, which is funny. Great shooter.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's the late first round. You're trying to get something. You're trying to get something. You can either bank on upside or you find a tactical fit on your bench and then turn him into a starter someday, maybe. And
Mhm.
even if he's a guy off the bench, that's fine for the late first round. He's a guy that can shoot. And the Sam Hauser stuff is interesting because as much as the Celtics would like to keep Sam Hauser, we just don't know if he's going to be around here for super long. So Sharman's already 23. You can step in, maybe play a little bit this year in the NBA, but I don't know. I like the pick though.
Mhm. Speaking of Sam Hauser, you didn't have any because I don't think we talked about this on last week's show. I don't even know if the story broke, but you didn't have any beers thrown at you by Sam Hauser or anywhere near you at the parade, did you? Okay, good. So
No.
you avoided the, you could say, splash zone. I'm sure you saw the story of him throwing up in the cooler at the parade and then tossing beers that he threw up on out to people. Like kind of a psycho move from Sam Hauser. I don't know. He must have been gone at that point. So like I'm not gonna say like I don't know what's going through your mind at that point because clearly nothing at that point in time. When you just decide like, hey,
Lights are on, no one's home situation.
perfect, yeah, perfect analogy there for him. Like I couldn't believe that when I'm like, dude, why would you admit to that? Like you trying to
Oh,
celebrate. People are happy, obviously. Like if I was out there, I'm sure you too. If you caught, because you said you almost caught a what holiday beer that was thrown at you, like
yeah.
that would have been an awesome moment. So like imagine being somebody that catches a beer from Sam Hauser. You're like, dude, this is awesome. You're posting pictures and everything of it, and then 2 or 3 days later, you find out, yeah, I threw up on those beers and was just kind of chucking them into the crowd. Like that was. When I heard that, I'm like, what are you doing, man? Just keep that
Yeah.
story to yourself. Or like, say you
Oh
throw up on the
God.
boat.
Yeah.
Don't say you threw up in the cooler. Like, what the fuck?
The video of him throwing up is
Clearly
so
obvious
funny
too. Like when
too.
that video came out, I'm
So
like, I think he
funny.
just puked on the boat. Like,
It's so funny.
yeah, that's
Oh man.
unbelievable. But another guy you mentioned, their second round pick, Anton Watson. Again, didn't know a lot about the player. 23 years old, 6'8", was kind of just going off of what Brad Stevens said in the interview that he had, or the press, the media coverage when after the draft. He talked about Anton Watson, the guy he thinks can guard multiple positions because again the Celtics love that type of player. Again 6'8", good wingspan, and then Brad Stevens had an interesting quote as well. He kind of said that he's hoping when Watson gets here, he wants him to just kind of let it fly with his shot because Brad Stevens seems to think that Watson has a better shot than Watson himself thinks. So that's kind of an interesting little tidbit. For him, 14 and a half points per game last year with Gonzaga, 7.1 rebounds. So again, pretty versatile there. 41.2% three-point shooter. So again, maybe it's how many threes he's taken a game, but from a percentage standpoint, better three-point shooter than Shireman, who was the guy that was looked at as the sharpshooter of the two picks. So that's kind of interesting. I do like the multi-facet thing that the Celtics are going with, as we've seen over the years, the guys that can guard on the multiple positions. This to me strikes me as a guy, not Al Horford like, but similar, can guard multiple
I saw him
positions.
mentioned like Horford. Yeah.
Did you? Okay, so that is interesting then. But
Yeah, one of my buddies sent me something like that. Or like maybe he models his game after Horford a little bit,
okay,
something.
don't hate that. So yeah, I mean, not the biggest body at 6'8", but if he can guard multiple positions, if he has those abilities, like I'm cool with that. Again, this is a guy you're probably not going to see. Like I expect to see Sharman before I see Anton Watson. Like Watson's a guy that strikes me as you're going to play most of the year in Maine, and develop your
Mhm.
game a little bit more, and then maybe end of the season if we need somebody, like a Walsh type of situation where you
Yeah.
play him a couple games at the end of the year. I'd be cool with that. But if this is a guy that needs some seasoning in Maine, don't hate that. Because again, like as we know, and we'll get into in a second with the cap stuff and all the money that's being thrown around, this is how the Celtics are going to have to build out their team from the next couple of years. You're going to have to try to hit on some of these late draft picks that you expect to have, in the 30 ranges and the 55 to 60 range when you get into the second round. So if you can hit on both these guys, or one of these guys works out, I can't see how you can complain too much about that.
Nope. I don't really have much else to add on Watson, but
That's what I mean. Like,
yeah.
you're not gonna spend a whole lot of time talking about. The other thing I wanted to say on Shireman, which I think I texted you this, or we were maybe texting or talking over Twitter. I did see someone. And again, I don't want to rain on anybody's parade because obviously a lot of people get hyped when it comes to draft picks and stuff like that. But I did see somebody talk about Shireman as like, oh, this is a guy that steal the draft at 30. This kid's like excellent, does all these good things. And there's part of me that's like, all right, if he's so great, how did he fall to 30? In the draft? Like, how did a lot of these teams pass up on him? So if a lot of teams pass up on him and he ends up being great, then that's great for the Celtics, and the rest of the league is stupid. But like again, I don't want to be like, let's pump the brakes on this kid a little bit. I do find it interesting though that I think a lot of people kind of share that same mindset of like, holy crap, how did this kid fall to 30? And the Celtics end
Dude,
up
the
with him.
Celtics too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like of
Like
all
the team
teams.
that's already rich enough as is.
Right.
But
Yeah, I mean it's something to monitor. That's
for
what you're
sure.
looking at, especially later in the draft. But other than that, the draft wasn't so exciting. So it's a pretty
No,
lackluster draft class. No, what is exciting? My boy is back. Elias Nikita
everybody's
is sticking
back.
around. Everybody's back. It's great. Besides maybe O'Shea Brissett.
Yeah, he's
Salvaggio
probably
declined.
gonna go. Yep.
Yeah, he wants to play more somewhere else. Fair enough.
You can't say I blame him.
Multi-year
Yeah.
deal for Keita, but yeah, O'Shea might be gone. Keita is back. Cornette is back. Tillman is back. Let's catch up on the bench. How do we feel? I don't think there's anything to complain about here.
No, I'm glad that you're able to share some of these guys up. Like I was maybe not skeptical that like I didn't want him back, but like Tillman, I thought maybe could have maybe gotten some money elsewhere. Maybe there's a
Yeah,
team that needs like a bigger role of him as an actual backup center and power forward. So maybe he was the guy that was going to walk if the money wasn't right, but only estimated at $2.5 million for 2 years. Perfectly fine with that. Luke Cornett, I saw today, has a no trade clause, which is kind of funny on a 1 year deal.
I
That
saw
just
him
seems,
doing the gritty at the parade
yeah, doing the. You said he was doing
or
the
in the
pump the
locker room.
crowd
The
and
locker room. No,
Yeah.
yeah, locker room. I saw that gritty video surface recently, though. I
Hmm.
hadn't seen it prior.
But yeah, glad he's back. I mean, Hauser, not a surprise. We kind of thought that was going to happen when we found out he had a club option, like that gets picked up. Keita, um, the writing was kind of on the wall for him because I think he had the same, him and Hauser, I think, had the same day to try to figure out their contract situations. And when you found out Keita's club option was declined, a lot of people immediately were like, oh, that probably means he's getting a multi-year deal instead of the Celtics are just going to let him walk, because I think that would have been foolish. With kind of the questions that you have going into next season, we know Porzingis is not going to be ready. You know, I don't know if it's the first week of the season, first month, whatever he's going to be out for. Obviously, again, love Al Horford, but 38, 39 years old. How much can you realistically rely on him moving forward? So to have Keita come back, to have Cornette back, Tillman, same thing, because obviously we saw a little bit more at Tillman as the season went on late. And that was obviously due to Cornette's injury. But to have those three guys back, get them more seasoning, and have them play a little more, it is going to be good to have those kind of known commodities to start the season, because you're not going to have to worry about, maybe a lack of production from your center spot if Cornette or Horford can't go. At the start of the year, back to backs or whatever it may be.
Right. Yeah, I mean, nothing crazy. I don't think anybody should worry about anything too much, and
No, absolutely
should
not.
be overly excited about any of these moves. That's the beauty of signing good bench players. You need them to be bench players.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, on the topic of starters, Derek White, long awaited, just under $126 million extension, 125.9. And Tatum, depending on who you talk to, with 315 or 314, like the St. Louis area code,
Yeah.
over 5 years. The Celtics, over the course of the next few years on all their contracts, I think are over $1 billion, if I'm not mistaken.
I think next year's starting lineup is like 900 and I don't want to say like 902, or it's a weird number, but it's over $900 million for the starting five of Tatum, Brown, Horford, or Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, Holiday, and now Derek White. Derek White, the big one for a lot of people, was basically took a hometown discount. Now to some people, 125.9 is would not be a hometown discount for the people that want to argue that, like, oh, these contracts are ridiculous. But we talked about this before with him, a guy that definitely, if he went to free agency next season, was going to get more money than that. Like, I don't think that's too crazy to say there was some team that would have paid, out the ass for Derek White, and rightfully so, because he's a great player. So very happy that he's back. And I said this right at the start of at the end of the season when we started talking about Derek White stuff. Like, would not surprise me if he took a hometown discount to be here, because he just struck me as that type of guy. Didn't, want to play for the money, would just play to, play with his teammates and have a chance to win championships. So to see him get a solid pay raise is nice. The Tatum one you knew was coming from a while. I don't think he was going to take a pay cut by any means. If you throw $315 million at someone, they're probably not going to decline that. But Tatum, I kind of was thinking about this the other day too. He's another guy that strikes me that, like, if he did have the opportunity to take less money, I feel like he's same thing, probably would have, because again, I think he's more in it for, playing with this group of guys and, building the best team capable. But two guys very deserving of two massive contracts. Obviously Tatum more than White, of course. But the only thing that stinks is now Jaylen Brown is no longer the highest paid player in the NBA, so he does not have that title anymore. Can't hold that over anybody's heads. And, I'm sure now, like people last year with Brown, I'm sure there are people out there that are, oh, Tatum's the highest paid player in the NBA. Like, that's hilarious because he doesn't deserve that, which, F off in that case. Like, the guy getting
now Tatum can say kiss the ring.
Yeah, so, absolutely. And he's definitely going to. He has right from the get-go and will continue to do so.
Yeah, I mean, what's not to love?
Mm-hmm. Well, there is one thing not to love. Out of all the news,
well, I'm talking about these other two moves.
Fair enough. But
what's not to love? The group is together. A repeat is in the cards fully.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of crazy that in all the news, all the craziness of the NHL free agency, the NBA free agency, the Celtics bringing pretty much everyone back, like you said, except for O'Shea Brissett, which again, all the power to him. If he wants to get another a little bit of a pay raise and get more playing time, I think he's definitely deserving of that. So it'd be interesting to see where he ends up if he doesn't come back to the Celtics. But with all that news that broke, the craziest and the biggest of the day when all this happened was that apparently the Celtics are going to be up for sale. Wyc Grousbeck will be selling, I think, his part ownership or whatever it is. Celtics have announced that the ownership group will sell the team. Wyc will remain with the team governor until 2028, but controlling ownership of the team will be sold in the 2024 or early 2025. And that stinks. Because out of all the owners and governors, whatever you want to call them, with the Boston, sports teams, the big four, I feel like Wick's probably the best out of the four of them. Like he's the one that like
Yeah,
anytime he said like we're gonna spend money, we're gonna go for it, he seems to back it up. Like Robert
he
Kraft has
is.
said that for years, but you can tell the Patriots aren't really doing that. We know what John Henry and the Red Sox are like. That's a dumpster fire of an organization. The Bruins, have not
John
been
Henry.
bad by any means. But they've had their moments over the years, or maybe they kind of talk a little bit
Yeah.
and don't really back it up. But
People have speculated John Henry's going to get into the NBA now with the
well, that's
Celtics.
the
I don't
thing I
even
was going to
know.
ask you, and
Is
that's
that
what
even possible? It has to be to some extent, but like
wouldn't see why it wouldn't be. That's the thing that scares a lot of people, and that was the
this
thing.
was this was speculative too.
Mhm.
Um, people saw that Jeff Bezos
I
sold
saw
five
that right
billion in
before we
stock
jumped on.
today,
Yeah.
and
So
I
that's the
don't know
question.
if I want a billionaire tech dork running the
Well,
ownership of the
here's the
Celtics.
question. You bring that up. Would you rather have Jeff Bezos or John Henry?
Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not
Yeah,
even
I mean,
a
no
question.
doubt.
Mhm.
But I mean, at least Jeff Bezos is a functioning brain that isn't melting by the second.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it was kind of funny. That was a lot of people's reaction right away because as we known for a couple of years now, that John Henry and Fenway Sports Group, they have said they want to get into the NBA. And obviously, a lot of people have thought that means like, okay, once you put a team in Vegas, you have an extension team, then that's when you go and, make your move there and go ruin that franchise or care less about that franchise as time goes on. But the fact that now the NBA group right in their backyard has opened up scares the hell out of me. Like
Yeah,
I
it
want
should.
I
It
want
should.
nothing with that ownership group to do anything with this team because again, I think the
No.
Celtics have done a lot of, Wick, whoever it is that's running the show, um, has been great. Again, they've said with all the right things, they've done all the right things. They've been, I feel like, one of the ownership groups you can kind of trust with their word over these last couple of years or last decade. And they've done everything right. They've been, I think, feel like the consummate ownership group, and the fact that timing is weird too. Like you wouldn't think after you win an NBA championship, you have all these star players coming back that you would want to sell the team, which has kind of led some people to think that maybe Wick, doesn't have as deep as pockets, which we're not going to get into because again, I'm not going to speculate about a guy's financial situation. There's also been some speculation that maybe like it happened to the Mavericks. I think Mark Cuban sold it to a what was it, a casino ownership group or family or
I'm not
something. So
sure.
there's been some speculation that
Yeah, I
maybe
heard people bring up Cuban as well.
yeah, there's been some speculation that maybe whoever owns Encore, because I don't know what that situation is, that maybe they want to be tied to the Celtics, and then that's led to a whole speculation that maybe the Celtics could possibly get a new arena and stray away from the Bruins and the Jacobs family a little bit and share in the Garden. So there's a whole lot of speculation going on right now.
So Encore is owned
It's the
by
Wynn family, or
Wynn Resorts.
Wynn
Yeah.
Resorts. That's what
So
it
I
is.
don't know who the head of the Wynn family and operations is, his name or her
Mhm.
name, but um that would be nuts. Another one I would prefer over John Henry. So if they
Yeah,
want to buy the Celtics, go
that's what I
ahead.
mean. You could
I
name a
don't even
lot of
know who
people
you
you
are. I
prefer
don't even know who you
before.
are. But
Yeah.
if you can run the team in a much less frustrating way than John Henry will, I will take it.
The
I will.
one,
I
go
would
ahead.
take a guy that I've never heard of from fucking Rhode Island with
Yeah, exactly.
five
Before
billion
you get to
dollars to
John
spend,
Henry.
that works for like an investment firm and makes his money on stocks or
Yeah.
something like that. Some random I would rather have that has $1 billion over John Henry
Mhm.
or billions of dollars.
Yeah, because I mean, they were talking about this on Felger and Maz the other day, and Maz brought up a great point where if John Henry is to own the Celtics, if you look at what he owns, the Red Sox, the Globe, the Penguins, they still own
Doesn't
the racing group, right? I think they're still in Liverpool in some degree.
there?
Now you add the Celtics on, like, how much is enough, man?
Does John? No, I was thinking Revolution for some reason with John Henry, but he's also got
No, it's
Liverpool.
yeah,
So I don't know
Liverpool is
how
his soccer
involved he
deal.
even is with Liverpool anymore. I feel like
It's definitely
I
decreased
feel like
because I think
Liverpool hate fans hate
yes,
him.
that was what I was gonna say. It's decreased, I think, because of how
Yeah,
poorly that has gone.
a
I think
Liverpool, how
again,
they
reason
say it.
why not to get invested with the Celtics because you don't want to see that franchise go down. But if there is one bright spot in this, there was a report that came out the other day that Steve Paliuca, who I don't know I meant to look it up, what his ownership stake or what his connection is when it comes to like specifics. He did say he is potentially going to throw his hat into the ring on fully buying the Celtics. So that would be best case scenario. There wouldn't be much of a transition from him, from Wick to him rather. So that is where I would want them to go, is I would like Steve Paliuca to fork over whatever the amount of
Right.
money is that it's going to cost. Because I think the Celtics Right
He's a
now, it's
co-owner. Okay.
yeah. I
Nice.
guess I couldn't think of we're getting into financial talk here.
He's
Clearly
got
not my
other
strong suit.
investments as well.
Yeah. But he would be, I think, the best option again if you want to keep things how they've gone and not change anything too crazy. He would be the guy to get
Please,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
please.
And
I
Base,
want to
it
keep it
is
this way.
funny. Bezos would be an interesting one, and definitely I
That
feel
would
like
be
would.
nuts.
Yeah. But
That would be nuts. He
but
would
yeah, I
like.
mean,
He's a guy. I feel like if they were to hire him due to his non-sports background, I think he's been trying. He's been like around rumors of teams that are looking for an owner for a while.
mhm.
He'd have like a team come with him of like real ringers that could help him out.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
maybe that should give you comfort if he buys the team. But I have no fucking idea.
Yeah,
So
exactly. It's little
yeah,
bit
anyone
not
but
out
John.
of our realm of
Hashtag
expertise.
start. Start the hashtag. Anyone but
Well,
John. I just
the
double
thing too
down
that
on
I
that.
just remembered about John Henry
Start.
is who's a part owner of Fenway Sports Group when it comes to the NBA. Certain basketball player that we just talked about, his son getting drafted.
LeBron.
NBA rules: you cannot own. I don't know what the rule specifically is, but I heard this the other day. Is if he's still an active player, he can't. Like that's right in their rule book. You cannot have any sort of whatever it might be stake in another team or in another league or whatever. That's against the NBA rules. So that might be the one saving grace is if LeBron keeps playing, which he did just sign a 2-year deal today. So we know he's in the league
Yeah,
at least for 2 more
104 million or
years.
something.
Yeah, something insane. Um, Maybe that's something that keeps John Henry and Fenway Sports Group out of the Celtics is unless
And we're
LeBron
thanking
sells part of
LeBron if
his.
that's the case. Thank
Yeah,
you, LeBron.
absolutely. The one good thing that LeBron may do
I
for the city
know.
of Boston is keep
I
John
know.
Henry out of the Celtics, which would be absolutely fantastic. But it does stink again because like the timing not couldn't have been worse because obviously they just came off a championship. But like again, you don't really I feel like ever see a team at the peak that they are at that is getting sold and people do say, you sell at the highest value. So maybe this is what Wick's doing.
Yeah.
Celtics are only going to keep going up. Obviously the contracts are going to keep going up. So maybe that's the reason to get out. Well, the getting out is still
And he's
hot
still
too.
gonna have
So
governorship for a while, so it's not like he's gone
yeah, exactly. He's not
completely.
walking away immediately. I wonder if maybe like he tapers. Probably not because he's as big as a fan as he is of the team and involvement. Like he's not going to taper off because again, Mark Cuban is a good comp. He really didn't taper off all that much. I mean, he's still sitting courtside at games, so it's not like he is completely disappeared from that team. I'd have to assume Wick will still be around the organization and stuff like that, but kind of a weird situation, kind of a shitty one as well. Because again, when you think of the Celtics ownership group, you think of them as one of the top tier ones in the NBA, and I feel like a lot of a decent amount of sports here, and definitely in Boston. So that one kind of stung a little bit when that came out.
It sure did, man.
Mhm.
But got everybody
Is what
locked
it
up.
is. Yeah.
So that's the thing that should give you some relief.
For sure. But
Alrighty.
and then
What's
there was
next?
yeah,
Everything
and
else.
and then there was everything else that happened on the NBA free agency day. I'm not going to run through all the names because a lot of guys have signed. Try to pick out some of the bigger names. Starting again, Nick Claxton. Do you see him as a big name? Brooklyn retains him. The Bulls made a couple of decent moves. They trade for Josh Giddey, give up Alex Caruso, so they get younger. Yeah, a little bit of an interesting move there, depending on what your thoughts on are of Josh
They
Josh
put a
Giddey.
they put a caption out that got a lot of flack for like some picture with one of their rookies too, and they're
Did
like
they? I didn't
likening
see
it to like
that.
Josh Giddey, like something about a 19-year-old. I don't know.
Oh, okay,
People
not great.
spun it towards Giddey or something. Yeah,
Not great.
but why? Why trade for the guy? Why?
I mean, he's a good player. Like
He
I'm
is,
not I'm
but
not going to knock his on-court ability.
Jesus.
It's the off-court stuff that maybe in between the head or in between the ears rather, as the saying goes, that
You're
may
going in a tougher sport market now, Josh.
yeah, oh for sure. But I mean, maybe the Bulls want to get younger. That seems to be the case. There's talk of maybe them trading Zach LaVine. Does DeMar DeRozan go back there? It doesn't seem like he might maybe end up back there. It's kind of the Lakers and the Heat. It seems like are the final two that are going to get into a bidding war for him. The big one for the Cleveland Cavaliers, Donovan Mitchell signed a 3-year, $150.3 million extension. So he stays in Cleveland. That, keeps that team competitive for, the foreseeable future. Big one in Dallas, Klay Thompson ends up leaving the Warriors, finishes his Warriors career on an 0 of 10 shooting game in the playoffs, which is not a great way to walk out of Golden State. But the guy had a great career there, so I'm not going to knock him too much. 3 years, $50 million for Dallas, and for the betting world people, I think the Mavericks opened up as, what was it, plus 1,100 was their title odds at the end of the NBA Finals. They signed Klay Thompson, and those odds moved to plus 1100. So the NBA and the betting world does not think Klay Thompson's going to be that much of a difference maker for Dallas. Where are you at on him? Because you and I kind of, when we saw this deal, we're like, all right, decent move for Dallas, but
Yeah,
like, I don't know if that moves the needle. I don't know how much Klay Thompson has
no.
left in the tank. Like,
It's just like it helps. It doesn't help them if they play the Celtics again that much. Like
yeah.
it doesn't put them over the top against the Nuggets. Like it doesn't put them over the top necessarily to play the Thunder maybe. Like
Mhm.
I don't know, man. He's getting progressively worse.
For me, it all depends on if you're talking Dallas specifically. Like, how did the other two guys come back? We talked about it in the finals run. Does Luka? Everyone made the jokes. Luka's out of shape. Does he come back with a fire under his ass to say I'm going to get in shape and I'm going to make this team better? Does Kyrie finally figure out the head games of Boston if it ends up being the Celtics again? Down the road he has to play against. So I think those two guys are the more important ones. But it is, we'll be honest, it is a good pickup for Dallas because again we talked about it in the finals. Like their supporting cast sucked. So you bring in Klay Thompson, whether he has a little bit left in the tank or not, it is better than the likes of what they have. So at least they're trying to get better and trying to make a big splash. And if Thompson can figure something out and maybe regain a little bit of that old magic, maybe it works out well for Dallas. But obviously time will tell on that one.
Yep.
For sure. Pistons, they had some cap space, did a couple of decent things, trying to get better and not have, the giant losing streaks that they had this season, the historical runs. They signed Cade Cunningham to a 5-year, $226 million extension off of his rookie deal. Tobias Harris goes back to Detroit. Nice pickup for them. 2 years and $52 million. And speaking of the Mavericks, they end up trading for Tim Hardaway Jr., who basically did nothing for Dallas down the stretch. So I don't know if that's a great pickup for Detroit or not. Maybe they see something that we didn't, obviously watching that team. But a couple of nice pickups there. Warriors, they replaced Klay Thompson with Kyle Anderson on a 3-year, $27 million deal from Minnesota. They get D'Anthony Melton, a nice little pickup from the 76ers. Houston re-signs Aaron Holiday to a 2-year, $9.5 million deal. Pacers make some noise. They bring back Siakam on a 4-year, $189.5 million deal. Obi Toppin comes back on 4 for 60. And then an interesting pickup for a team that, as we know, was a great offensive team and struggled a little bit on the defensive end. We saw that in the Celtics series plenty of times. They take a chance on James Wiseman, kind of a forgotten man a little bit, bounced around after getting drafted by the Warriors, I think, second overall a couple years ago. He signs for 2 years, so that's an interesting pickup for them, taking a chance on a guy that obviously was looked at as a pretty good rim protector coming into the league, hasn't really panned out. I think he's in a perfect situation there because, again, the Pacers, they're known for their offense. He's not going to have to score for them. I feel like, just solely going to have to be a defensive stopper. So if they can get him right, kind of back to where he was projected to be coming into the draft, or coming into the league rather out of the draft, that could be a really sneaky good pickup for them. I don't know if you feel the same way, or if you know a lot about Wiseman, or kind of your thoughts on that move.
I just know he should be better. So like
That's the MO
just
on
take a
James
shot.
Wiseman. Yeah.
Broken, but might be fun to fix.
Fair enough. I think that's a good way to
That
look
meme,
at it.
yeah.
Make that T-shirt with James
Verbal
Wiseman's
meme.
face on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Clippers, they did lose Paul George. We'll get to him in a second, but they do bring back. I was surprised James Harden came back after Paul George left. I thought maybe James Harden would have went elsewhere as well, but he re-signs 2 years, $70 million. Speaking of Dallas's bad supporting cast, Derrick Jones Jr., he goes to the Clippers, 3 years, $30 million. So maybe they see a little bit of offensive ability there for him, trying to replace Paul George. Nick Batum, Mo Bamba, Chris Dunn, and Kevin Porter Jr., again, kind of a little bit of a forgotten man, played over in Greece, I think, at the end of last year. Played pretty well over there, so he signs a 2-year deal as well. Clippers obviously weren't going to shell out a massive contract for Paul George. They basically said, or pretty much said, they weren't going to do that. Put some nice pieces together here. I think they, spread out the money pretty well. Get some veteran guys, get a good mix of the Clippers with their rebrand that they're going through this season. Trying to put something together, trying to, move on from Paul George. Not the worst thing in the world. Lakers, as we said, LeBron James re-signs on a 2-year, $104 million max deal there. They re-signed Max Christie for 4 and 32. And then Bronny James, we talked about, signed his rookie contract today. 4 years, $7.9 million. You did bring up an interesting point earlier, which I forgot to touch on, because I kind of had the same mindset as well. Like, a second round pick is that a lot of money for a second round pick? You said there was a guy, what was it, last year, that went in the same spot
I think
for
I saw like same spot
700,000,
like 750K or like $1 million or something.
Yeah, see, I was kind of in the same boat as that, like, because I thought that was going to happen. Like, okay, Bronny's a second round pick, but I'm sure LeBron will finagle like $10 million for the guy. I did read an article today, for the people that might not know as well, or kind of in the same boat you and I are, that I think the NBA is moving a little bit towards like second round guys getting some bigger deals, like some of these teams taking more and more chances on some of these guys. Now, again, obviously it's a different situation when LeBron James is there and he's basically running the team. So I'm sure there was a little bit of swaying to get Ronnie a decent contract there. But I did think it was worth noting that the NBA has kind of moved to that a little bit more of second round draft pick guys, maybe getting some chances taken on them with some longer, more thought out contracts, I guess.
Yeah,
Just to kind
I
of
mean,
put that
doesn't
out
make
there.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Miami Heat, their fans, they always tell you that they're going to do something big in the offseason, and they might. DeMar DeRozan has been linked there. But the Miami Heat's big move to come back and try to, beat these teams in the East. They've re-signed Kevin Love for 2 years and $8 million. So Heat fans celebrate that and continue to tell us that, you're going to sign all the big free agents of the offseason and have fun with that. Bucks, they signed DeLon Wright from Miami, so the Heat actually lost somebody as well off their bench. 1 year, $3 million there. The big trade that we'll talk about in a second, the Pelicans, they got DeJounte Murray from the Hawks, so that was a nice pickup for them to go along with Brandon Ingram and Zion, of course. That could be a pretty deadly trio there if all guys stay healthy and play to their capabilities. I think we briefly touched on this last week. The Knicks, they get Mikal Bridges from the Nets to put together the Villanova Knicks. Re-signed OG Anunoby to a 5-year, $212.5 million deal. So a couple of nice pickups there for the Knicks. I have a question on them that I'll ask you in a second. Obviously talking kind of relating to the Celtics. The Thunder made a couple of nice moves. Alex Caruso, of course, was traded there. That's a good backcourt pickup for them and a defensive stopper. Same thing with Isaiah Hartenstein, good rebounder. He goes from the Knicks to the Thunder, 3 years, $87 million. Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins were both re-signed as well. Orlando Magic, they took Kentavious Caldwell-Pope from the Nuggets, 3 years, $66 million for them. Good little pickup. And then re-upped a bunch of their own guys. Jonathan Isaac signed a 5-year, $84 million extension. Mo Wagner, 3 and 22, a couple other pieces there. The big one, 76ers had a decent offseason so far. Paul George, 4 years, $211.5 million from the Clippers. Tyrese Maxey signed a 5-year, $203.8 million extension. Oubre re-signed, Andre Drummond re-signed, and then Eric Gordon was signed from the Phoenix Suns. Speaking of the Suns, haven't done a whole lot. Royce O'Neal was re-signed. Bol was re-signed, so nothing too crazy there for Phoenix, who's kind of a little bit strapped for cap space. Still paying the likes of Durant and Bradley Beal there. Trailblazers, you're gonna have to help me with the pronunciation of this guy. We talked about this trade briefly. Is it Advija or Adviha? Denny Adviha. Advija, thank you. They got him in a trade from the Wizards, I believe, last week.
Avdija. I think it's Avdija.
Yeah, we'll never get the pronunciation of that guy's name right. So just put it out there. Now, Sacramento Kings, they re-signed Malik Monk, 4 and 77.9, a couple other guys as well. Interesting one for the Spurs. They brought in Chris Paul after he was waived from the Warriors, on a 1 year, $11 million deal. It'll be interesting to see how he kind of works with Wembanyama.
So another year of Chris Paul not winning a championship.
Exactly. Yep. Another year of him never even threatening to win a championship. You hate to see it.
Ryan Russillo in shambles, but Ryan Russillo will love him playing with Wemby. So
yeah, I'm interested to see that because Chris Paul can be a headache at times, but I think he will do that team some good. That's obviously a young team that's looking for a veteran presence. Wembanyama especially, it's obviously his team, so I think Chris Paul will only help his development there as a player moving forward. Maybe he'll teach him, to flop and complain to the referee as well. And Wembanyama can pick up some tips on that. Raptors re-signed Scotty Barnes to a 5-year, $255 million extension that could reach $270 in incentives. Emmanuel Quickly was re-signed, 5 and 175. Garrett Temple and Davion Mitchell was acquired from the Kings. So the Raptors, not the flashiest team on paper, but making some nice moves with Barnes and Quickly to re-up them. Jazz really haven't done a whole lot. Drew Eubanks, nice little pickup there. Jonas Valanciunas goes to the Wizards on a 3-year, $30 million deal, and Rashawn Holmes was re-signed as well. Ran through a lot of names there. Any of them stand out other than the ones we kind of talked about? I know Paul George, like we said, really kind of briefly ran through him. I'll ask you my Celtics related question if you had anything that you wanted to touch on name wise.
Nah, nothing crazy. Like the Scotty Barnes one, I didn't have an idea of what he would have gotten, but that was a big number for me to see. But I guess that's what he's worth nowadays.
Okay. I'm going to try to word my question here where it makes sense because obviously a lot of 76ers fans are hyped. But they've brought in Paul George, they've brought in Tyrese Maxey. The Knicks are obviously hyped that they have brought in Mikal Bridges. Bucks haven't done a whole lot. Heat haven't done a whole lot. Pacers have kind of just re-upped their own guys. Wiseman's we talked about, nice little pickup there. Any of these moves, more so Paul George to the 76ers, because that's really been the biggest one so far. Bridges again to the Knicks, probably follows close second. After all these moves that you have seen, is there any team that stands out to you that is maybe the team that you are a little worried about when it comes to the Celtics? Any of these teams kind of stand out as one you think that could maybe dethrone the Celtics? Where are you at on some of these moves from some of these teams that are directly competing with Boston, like the Philadelphias, the Indianas, the New Yorks of the world?
Paul George doesn't do a lot for me.
Okay,
I'll
the
say it.
reason why?
I don't think he's a guy that's gonna win a championship ever.
Okay,
Unless he like back nine of his career at the end of it signs with the right team. I don't see Paul George as a big time winner.
he's
For the
not.
Knicks, it'll be
Never has been.
different. It'll be different. Jalen Brunson's a full blown star. Hopefully, for their sake, they could have used Julius Randle. He'll be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
They lose Hartenstein, which kind of stinks, but I don't know how they plan to replace him. That could be tough. But and then Bridges, from what I hear about him, is pretty good. Almost average 20 points a game. So the Knicks will be a threat. I don't. If I were to say right now, I don't think they'll beat the Celtics. The Pacers, like last year, had a good chance to beat the Celtics as is,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't really change much, to my knowledge. So I think the Pacers are still scrappy enough to at least give them a series. But Philly, the Paul George thing doesn't really do a lot for me. I got to be real. Like, I think a good move for them is getting rid of Tobias Harris, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
That
I
guy
mean,
sucks.
George is an upgrade over him, no doubt
Oh,
about it.
no doubt. But when it comes to winning championships, it's not an X Factor championship move for me. It's a guy that scores points and
Mm-hmm.
makes an impact on the game for sure. But like this isn't a guy that I'm like he has this track record of great success in the playoffs, like going to championships or winning
Yeah,
championships. Like it's a lot of money for a great player. It's not a guy that pushes them over the Celtics for me though.
you said he's a
Because
guy.
The Celtics are crazy.
Yeah,
Like and they're so deep.
they
And
are.
they've won. They have the
They've
taste.
proven that they can do it. You said that Paul George is a guy that score. You know what else he does? Gets hurt and disappears in big games. Like perfect 76er. I'm right there with you. Like the bigger move is for Philadelphia. The bigger one for me is the Maxi extension. Like
Oh
he
yeah.
is a superstar in the making if he hasn't already become one. Like that is a guy that out of everybody on that team, Embiid included, scares me more than anything else. Because he's a guy that has proven can hit the big shot, can step up in the big moment. We've seen Embiid fall apart in those moments before, or get tired or run out of gas. Um, 76ers don't scare me. Like Paul George, I said it to somebody the other day. I said it would not surprise me if you look up at the beginning of January, February, as we're getting ready for a playoff push. Both Paul George and Embiid are hurt. Because like these are both guys that fall apart late in the season, can't stay healthy. So like, yeah, it's a nice move. It's a nice pickup for them. It obviously gets 76ers fans excited, and it's good for the league because it's a big superstar going to a new team. But it doesn't close the gap. I'm right there with you all that much for the Celtics. I still think they're a weak team, mentally weak. Like Paul George doesn't move the needle for me. The Knicks, they're the toughest team for the Celtics to face, I think, because they can beat teams up, I think. But you mentioned it. They lose Hartenstein. He was their big rebounder, their big presence in the middle. They don't really have that anymore. Like I can't remember the center. I think it's Robinson, their other center they have. Good player. He could fill that role, but he's always hurt too. I think Mitchell Robinson's his name. I love that these names just come to me after the point's pretty much gone. Um, but like you lose him, you lose a piece of your defensive identity there. Michael Bridges is a nice player, don't get me wrong. A guy who's I think played pretty much every game in the NBA for however many years. He's the NBA's Iron Man. But I'm curious to see how that might work out because we know Tom Thibodeau kind of caught some flack in the playoffs for playing a lot of his guys, the majority of the games, and they wore down, they got hurt, and that's why the Knicks got bounced. So does that happen to Bridges? Can he stay healthy? Like that's the big thing for me there. I'm with you. Pacers haven't done a whole lot to improve. They stayed the same. And, I think their playoff struggles last year will help them kind of propel them to a new level this year, but they haven't really closed the gap on the Celtics. They're the same team. Um, so again, like the Bucks haven't done anything. The Heat, they may get DeRozan, but like, does that push them over the top? I don't think so. It's still the same scrappy Heat team. They did sign, I forgot to put that in. They did extend Bam, I think, too. He was on a new 2 or 3 year deal. So
Yep,
that
right.
was a nice pickup or a nice little extension for them. Um, but yeah, like everyone's hooting and hollering about the Paul George of the 76ers. All the 76ers are going to be legit. They're going to, make a run. I don't see it. Like Paul George has not been that guy. He's been good again. Don't get me wrong, but he has not been the Paul George, of really the guy has kind of come down with age and everything. So I don't see them making a huge push for the Celtics. I heard Felger talk about it the other day where he was like, okay, cool. the Celtics beat the 76ers by like 16 or something games last year, standings wise. So you decrease that to 12 games because you got Paul George. Like you're still nowhere close to the Celtics. It was the point. And I agree with him. Like again, nice moves on paper, but Celtics, they'll obviously have their questions coming out of the season. Can they repeat? Do they get off to a slow start? How much does the Porzingis injury hamper them? But as you said, they're deeper than all these teams still. They still have, the top end talent, top to bottom. So unless there's like a massive crazy move coming here that we don't know about, like these teams are obviously trying to chase down the Celtics, but no one has really done anything, in my opinion, that is going to, put them over the top in any way, shape, or form.
Me neither, man.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
All right, glad we're in agreement. I'm not going to really run through any of the. We've kind of touched on some of the trades. I kind of said my piece. The Hawks and who was it? Hawks and Pelicans won for DeJounte Murray. That was interesting because again, I don't think that combination of him and Trae Young worked there. That was very apparent with how things went
Murray
there.
A lot though.
I do too. Like if I was the Hawks, I think I would have rather kept him and tried to move Trae Young and see what you could have gotten for him because I think Murray's a better all-around player than Trae Young. Murray's a better defender by far.
Murray,
Young
great to bet on. Great to bet on for me.
Is he?
Won a lot of bets for me.
Oh, there you go. So you have an affinity for him just off that alone. But yeah, I think that's a move that could work out really well for the Pelicans. Like they needed somebody to kind of distribute the ball a little better than what they had. Definitely gives them a third star with Ingram and Zion. So if those three guys, like I said, can stay healthy and gel, I think that would be a huge pickup for them. Other than that, like we touched on Bridges, we talked about Giddey and Caruso, kind of made the jokes there. So nothing too crazy there, unless you had anything else that you wanted to add.
Nothing here.
All right, fair enough. So we're just kind of waiting and seeing what the Celtics, if they do anything else. Again, don't have a ton of cap space to make any sort of moves. You're basically looking at like a league vet minimum type of deal. Maybe O'Shea Brissett comes back, but right now everything has kind of been locked up, and this core is still here. And again, until they are dethroned by somebody, I'm not going to get too crazy or get too worried about. Like again, my reaction when I first saw that Paul George move was I sent you the LeBron meme of like, oh god, all these teams are making these moves. Get worried. Like, nice move. But until Paul George proves otherwise, like you said, not a guy that has been known to be a big winner or step up in, excuse me, these big games. So like the 76ers needed to bring in like a guy that's a killer. Like they needed some sort of like hard-nosed guy to kind of take out Embiid in the stink of loser that he comes off as at times, as we know.
Yeah, I'm with you, man.
Yeah.
On
yeah,
the Sox.
That's pretty much it for Celtics. Red Sox, like I said, trade deadline's right around the corner. They are, I don't even want to say like in rumors because there's been so much going on with the Red Sox as we know. We talked about it a couple weeks ago and we both were kind of in agreement. If we had to guess, they're probably not going to do anything, which stinks because again, we have talked about it that this team has been fun to follow. They've been scrappy, they've been surprising, and they deserve to have some sort of backup come their way. But depending on who you look at, depending on who you ask, it does not seem like that's going to be the case. A lot of people, like I said, have been talking about the Red Sox of late. Ken Rosenthal on, I don't know if it's his podcast or a show or whatever it may be, but Fair Territory. And also had a column in The Athletic where he said the Red Sox, quote, should not be sitting idly by as the trade deadline approaches with the team defying expectations so far this season. NBC Sports Boston's John Tomasi had a couple of comments on the Red Sox on early edition the other day. I think it was last night, in fact, or 2 nights ago. He puts the Red Sox at a 25% chance of being buyers and a 75% chance of being sellers. In another edition of the show, he also said that the team is, quote, earned some help, and if none of it comes, it should cause, quote, a mutiny among the fans and the clubhouse. And even Alex Cora the other day in an interview, he discussed, prior trade deadlines, talking about how the Red Sox didn't really say it. He kind of, parsed his words of like, we kind of sat around, we were a good team, but teams around us got better. And obviously when that happens, like you're going to get passed by teams. His quote from that comment or that interview was, let's get greedy. Let's not settle for the third wild card. Obviously kind of leading some people to be like, oh, Alex Cora is pleading at ownership and upper management again to do something with this team. Try to get some help. Red Sox as of right now sit in third place in the American League East at 45-39. Probably heading to 46-39 after a win tonight. They're up 3-1 on the Marlins right now. 1 game back of the Royals for the third wild card spot. And at the time of writing this, we're 2.5 up on the Astros. I don't know if that changed or not with what Houston's done so far. I don't know how many Red Sox games you've caught of late. Again, I've kind of just been feeding you.
I watched yesterday.
Did you? There you go.
I watched a few. Yeah,
all right,
Jaron
so
Duran,
we're getting
home
there.
run, Sadon. Jaron
Where are you
Duran,
at with this team? So it is
I'm
good you're
okay with
watching. So
things.
you know what's going on. You've
Yeah.
seen it with your own eyes. You've kind of seen the way this team has come together and what they've blossomed into. So where you're at, with some of these comments that I just kind of quickly ran through, or what are your thoughts on the team moving forward as a whole?
Yeah, they're playing serviceable, sometimes above average baseball. I saw this stat from Jaron Duran that was cool. 100 hits, 10 triples, 10 dingers, and 20 stolen bases. The first American League player ever to record all of these numbers before the All-Star break. He is so good.
He's the
Like
only player in the league right now.
every time I watch a game, he steals too. It's crazy.
Yeah.
He got a crazy jump in like a third inning steal yesterday that was just sick. Like
Mhm.
he almost got tagged out, but the jump itself, like it was relatively close, but the jump itself was sick. Like
Mhm.
it was just perfect.
Yeah.
I love him. It's a good team. Like they're a good team. They're playing better than they should, depending on who you talk to. And I
Mhm.
do
Oh,
think they've earned
absolutely.
some. I do think they've earned some level of help, and I'm glad Ken Rosenthal is putting that out there. And Alex Cora, who's not one to shy away, is kind of cluing at it. Because like, look, you don't. If you're John Henry, if you're Craig Breslow, you don't need to spend tons. You don't. But if you spend a little bit, you get in the good graces of the fans. And then if you
Mhm.
do something in the playoffs, you're like, see, John Henry be like, see, I do spend money. Like
Yeah,
he can
exactly. It's a
finally get
win-win. Yeah,
some
it's a
some
win-win.
leverage. Like just do it. Like
Mhm.
we don't need like a Pete Alonso. Like some people say,
No.
we don't
Vladimir
need
Guerrero
fucking
Jr., some
Vladimir
people were
Guerrero
talking about.
Jr.
Yeah.
for fucking Marcelo Mayer
Garrett
and
Crochet, I heard some people
yeah,
bring
like
up, which like that would be selling, but like there is a way, and I'm glad you're starting to bring up some names here because I'm with you. I'm with Tomasi 100% that this team has earned some help at the trade deadline. And I'm not
yeah,
talking about
just don't
help
go
of
crazy. Like do something.
yeah, and I'm not talking about help of like we've seen in the past where they could sit there and we go, oh, we have Tristan Costas coming back and Liam Hendricks is right around the corner at some point, and maybe we get Vaughn Grissom back to help up the middle. So those are going to be our trade deadline additions. We're going to get guys back healthy instead of mortgaging the future to try, as John Henry doesn't ever want to do, and tries to claim that a lot of people want the Red Sox to sell the farm year after year. I want to play a game with you really quick because I was thinking about this the other night and I heard some of these names come up. And again, you mentioned it. I'm right there with you. I don't want this team to go out and trade, 3 or 4 top prospects for Crochet from the White Sox, or go out and get if Luzardo was healthy from the Marlins, go out and get him. Make some small moves that end up being impact moves. There's 3 guys over the last couple of years that they would end up trading for. 2 of them worked out really well. 2 of them helped you get a World Series. Nathan Eovaldi and Steve Pearce. The other one, a guy that you were very fond of, as am I, and again was very wrong at the time of this trade, saying that they did not need him. I don't know what they were getting him for. And Kyle Schwarber. Can you remember any of the 3 players without looking, because I have them whited out in the outline, what they traded for to get Eovaldi, Pierce, or Schwarber? Any of the players that
Yeah.
come to mind? You remember some of them, or do you remember all of them?
Jalen Beeks for Evaldi.
Okay.
Because I
Was he
remember
a
the Tampa.
Yep. Was he a
Yeah.
like big prospect, big player on this team when they traded him?
No, like had some reason to be excited about, but nothing crazy.
Okay.
And it's
So you're one
Schwarber,
for
so of
one.
course I remember Aldo Ramirez.
Okay. Has he become anything?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Steve Pearce, you remember what they gave up for him?
No.
Santiago Espinal, middle infield
Don't. Yeah.
prospect, used to play for the Blue, and this is another point too. Was on the Blue Jays. Now is on, I want to say the Reds. Nathan Eovaldi's case, they traded, you were right, they traded Beeks, Tampa Bay. He's now on the Rockies, I believe. So it's not like these guys are sticking with the teams they were traded to.
Yeah.
It's not like these guys are like cornerstones of these teams. Espinal's bounced around. He's been a good little player, but has not been anything crazy. I think you'll take that trade off to get yourself a World Series MVP in Steve Pearce. Eovaldi, same thing. Go ahead.
Can I say something for the guy who's like kind of overshadowed by John Henry's incompetence too? Can you like when you're playing this good give Craig Breslow a shot to see what he can do?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree with you.
Like, can we give the guy a shot to see what he can pull off?
Do in
For
a
fuck's
sense of
sakes?
like what he sees out there talent wise
Yeah.
instead of what we saw with Chaim Bloom of being
Like, as
afraid
if
to
John
make a
Henry's
move.
like, we're
Okay.
not doing anything, Craig Breslow is going to be kind of handcuffed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I don't disagree with you, but yeah, I mean, that is the point. Like these 3 impact, because again, some people will think of impact players in different fashions, but like, you don't have to give up a lot to find an impact player that could work out for you. It's happened very frequently and it's happened pretty well for you. So like my whole mindset is if you're in the still in it at the trade deadline, you almost have to add a starting pitcher. Like there is questions starting to form around this rotation. Bayo has pitched well tonight, but he's been horrendous over the last like month and a half. He has faltered big time. Pivetta, we know what he is. Like he is really, really good at times, or he'll come out and he'll give you 7 innings, strike out 10 guys, and then the next start he'll go 3 innings and give up 8 runs. Like it is what it is with Pivetta. Like that's what you're gonna get with him, and I'm not gonna complain about it because more so than not, he's good. But there is still their inconsistencies there. How can Crawford have been fantastic? How should be in line to start the All-Star game, the way he's going. Both of them have already reached, I think, their career high in innings pitched. So like you're already starting to see, Houck, I think, had his start skipped a couple games ago to try to, keep the wear and tear off. They may be doing that with Crawford as well, or he might have had a start pushed back as well.
He pitched last night too,
and he pitched last night. He pitched
we'll
well.
See what happens for his next start.
But that was the thing too. Good thing that you said that. He pitched last night, was pitching excellent. They took him out after like 72 pitches to try to, keep the wear and tear off him, which again, I'm fine with. But that's the thing. Like you have these two guys, these two young guys that have never pitched this many innings before. They're going to need some help down the stretch to keep them from wearing down. Cooper Criswell and Josh Winskowski have given you nice moments in the rotation, but can you rely on those two guys down the stretch if you need to? I'm not confident. You're shaking your head no, so you're in agreement. There are going to be options at the trade deadline for starting pitching. Like that is the route you should be going. And there are going to be plenty of names, I think, that are not going to break the bank that you should be interested in. A couple of guys I have listed here. There are some others that, they could maybe go after, but I think probably they stray away from because it's probably going to cost too much money. For the guys I think they should go after. Guy pitching tonight for the White Sox, been a pretty nice story. I think he was in Korea last year, Eric Fetty, former pitcher of the Nationals, I believe it was. Kind of, forgotten, knocked out of baseball a little bit. Bounced back nicely this year with the White Sox. 3.23 ERA, 5-3, 31 years old. Only making $7.5 million this year and next year. The next year is kind of concerning because maybe that's going to garner a little bit more from the White Sox, but they stink. Like they should not be asking for anything big prospect wise. Just get something back in return for some of these throwaway guys like Eric Fetty. Like they should be able to move him, and he's at the top. I feel like of everyone's kind of look for these guys to be traded list, those type of things at this time of year. Maybe the bidding war starts up and that kind of keeps the Red Sox away, but I wouldn't necessarily hate them going after him because I don't think it would cost a lot of money. Or prospects or anything like that. Tyler Anderson, same thing. Angels, he's been a guy I feel like that's been linked to the Red Sox before at trade deadlines because it's kind of his MO this type of year. Veteran guy, good anchor of a rotation. 17 games this year for the Angels, 7-8, a 3.03 ERA. He's making $13 million this year and next year, so a little bit more pricey than Fetty. But again, the Angels, they stink. They're not going to be in it. So I feel like, again, you can maybe trade off a smaller piece here or there. A couple of maybe mid-tier prospects to get him. Toronto guy, Yusei Kikuchi, 4-8, 4.18 ERA. He's had an up and down season, so maybe he's a guy you pry from Toronto.
I say Kikuchi?
What's up?
I didn't say nothing.
Yusei Kikuchi, good one. Very funny. Give yourself a round of applause and a pat on the back. But he's a guy, only, $10 million this year, UFA at the end of the season, so I feel like he's not going to cost you a lot for an expiring contract. Has proven he can pitch in the American League East. He's been here for a couple years now. He's been done pretty well, rather. So I don't think that would cost you a lot of money. Frankie Montas is a guy that's, have been no stranger to get moved at the trade deadline, pitching out in Cincinnati this year. 3-6, a 4.23 ERA and 15 starts. The one thing that concerns me with him is there is some injury history there. So maybe, if you want a guy that's not going to wear down at the end of the season, maybe you don't trade for a guy that is already wearing down. But again, like he could be a cheap option. That wouldn't be the worst thing. Kind of throw him a couple innings, work him in with a bullpen game here and there, stuff like that. Wouldn't hate that. And then one that I was interested in because I've seen his name come up a little bit in a couple of these articles I've been reading. Is Trevor Williams of the Nationals is on the injured list right now, so there is some injury concerns there. I think he's dealing with an elbow flexor strain, which is not the greatest thing. Yeah. 11 games this year, 5-0, a 2.22 ERA. There's maybe some thoughts he could come back before the trade deadline or right around it. My thought process with him is we just talked about Kyle Schwarber, a guy the Red Sox, obviously traded for. He was hurt. Red Sox have had success trading for injured nationals at the trade deadline. Maybe you try it again. If he's hurt, I can't imagine it's going to cost a lot of, and again, this isn't like Kyle Schwarber level, so you're not even going to probably have to give up a mid-tier prospect. I think like Ramirez was at the time, he might have been, in your 20s when it comes to ranked prospects. Like Trevor Williams should not garner a whole lot of return. Like he should garner a guy that's like not even in your top 30, I feel like, or maybe towards the end of it. So If he's right, if you think, he's going to be able to last the rest of the season, maybe he's a name you go after. But again, if that injury concern scares you away, then I'm perfectly fine with it. Not giving up a lot for him. But I know I ran through these guys really quickly. Any of them stand out to you before we jump into the guys that might be pipe dreams, but also maybe could be something they maybe look at?
Yeah, the Williams one is interesting because I feel like if he wasn't on the injured list, there'd be a bidding war, and the Sox wouldn't get him because the stats are good. Um, Fetty is interesting. Anderson is not interesting. Kikuchi, eh.
Any reason why for
Montas,
Anderson? Like, what are you off
eh.
on?
I don't want the money for
Okay,
2 years, the next 2 years for some guy that's like not amazing. Like,
okay,
which you're not going for like an amazing player here. Montas, every time I see his name, he's into trade rumors, so I'm kind of all set on him.
okay.
And yeah, all set. Kikuchi would be cheap, so I'd be okay with it. Fetty would be all right, and I just don't know if they would trade for a guy like Williams. So I'm on like Fetty or Kikuchi probably.
Mm-hmm. Fetty's again, not the flashiest name, which is why I think that he should be right up the Red Sox alley. If you don't want to spend a lot of money or spend a lot of prospects, again,
Sox is Sox.
yeah, exactly that too. That connection that wouldn't be the worst thing, but that the White Sox are so bad. They just take a prospect and hope he
Are the
pans
White
out
Sox
for
ever
you.
going to be good again?
Unless they blow that until you got to talk about trading like Luis Robert, maybe trying to get something for Eloy Jimenez. They're probably going to trade Crochet, so that'll get you a ton back in return because I think Baltimore checked in on him today. I saw or
Oh
yesterday.
boy, yeah.
So that'd be a huge get for them. But that's the piece that's the biggest for them. And no spoiler alert, I do not have him on this list that I'm going to start rattling off next because again, I don't think he's a viable option for the Red Sox because it's not the route they want to go. So again, a couple of bigger names here that have bigger price tags that maybe they could be linked to, but probably if they get into a bidding war, you're probably going to lose out on them. I do have a position player, Luis Rengifo, solely because his name has come up in trade rumors. Ken Rosenthal linked Rengifo to the Red Sox a couple weeks ago as a possible middle infield upgrade. And then Fanside had actually had a mock trade where the Red Sox get Rengifo for infield
Yeah.
prospect Franklin Arias and right-hand pitcher Brian Mata, the
Yeah,
13th and
if
27th
that's possible,
prospects.
I'm gonna need them to do that immediately.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That's all it takes to get a guy that can help your lineup because Renjifo's had a great year 319, 6 homers, 25 RBIs. Maybe is the Angels representative at the All Star game this year with the season he's had. $4.4 million this year, arbitration next year, and a UFA at the end of the season, 27 years old. So there is some reason to maybe believe the Angels could want a decent haul back for him because, again, that controllability, cost controllable, pretty young, can play everywhere. 42 games at third base this year, 28 games at second base, 2 at shortstop, 1 in right field. So the guy's very versatile. Um, but again, I don't know where Fansided's getting this mock trade from if they just decided to kind of whip this
Yeah,
up out
mock
of
trades can be nonsense, but
yeah.
in the event, yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely. Because again, you have all your entire prospect core is made up of shortstops. I don't even know where this kid is in the minors, what his timetable is. And then Brian Mata at this point, I think, is a lost cause. Like the guy's
Yeah.
always hurt. I feel like he's not gonna pan out, which sucks because there was such high
Hype.
hope for him at the start and such hype. Yeah. But if you can get someone to take him and you get something viable back, like Rengifo would be for a couple of years, because again, under control next year, arbitration wise, wouldn't be the worst thing. Like again, I don't think they need that big of an upgrade in the middle infield.
No,
Like
yeah.
David Hamilton's blossomed into a nice player. Renjifo's not Renjifo, excuse me. Rafaela's been great at short. You're gonna get Von Grissom back at some point, I'd have to think, unless his injury is just season ending, which I don't think it is. So he's gonna come back at some point. Valdez has been serviceable at second base, so I'm not huge into trading for a middle infielder if you don't need one, especially if you need the bullets to get a pitcher. That's the route I go. Some other, starting pitcher names. Jack Flaherty's name has come up. He's going to be the bell of the ball, I think, at the trade deadline, if it's not going to be Crochet. Flaherty's, I think, way more obtainable for teams. He's not going to cost as much. But if you get into a bidding war with teams, again, a lot of teams I think are going to be in on him, then the Red Sox are not going to, price themselves out of getting him. Like, he's going to cost a decent haul. So I think he is probably out of their budget. Austin Gomber's a name I've seen come up for the Rockies. 30 years old, under control this year and next year. What are the Rockies going to do? Nobody really knows because, again, it's the Rockies. You never really know with them. So maybe, again, kind of similar to Flaherty. If you get into a bidding war, I don't think the Red Sox are going to do that. Same thing with Cal Quantrill. Again, nice story, nice pickup for them. Guy that was kind of thrown off by Cleveland because they have all the pitching in the world, it seems like. So kind of a forgotten man there. He's panned out nicely for Colorado, but falls into the same category for me as Gomber and Flaherty. Like other teams will probably come calling on him, and if they start to give up more than the Red Sox are willing to do so, probably not going to go after him. Chris Bassett's an interesting one for me. On the older side, 35 years old. The price tag is not great. $22 million this year, $22 million next year. You're shaking your head, so I'm not even going to ask you about him. I don't know how much I don't know if you can get teams to eat money in baseball. Yeah, good player. Like I would like the fix. I think he would work pretty well. Veteran pitcher, he eats innings. I feel like he's never really injured or anything, so he'd be the guy to get. If you really are in on trading for a starter that you think is going to help your team, and you start to lose out on some of these other guys, but the $22 million that's way too pricey for the Red Sox. They're not going to do that. And then the other one that's name has come up of late, Zach Eflin of the Rays. Obviously, we saw the Rays either today. Yeah, today I think it was trade Aaron Savale for I think the Brewers' 21st overall prospect. Again, like that's a move the Red Sox should be able to make. Trade a middle prospect for a starting pitcher that you can just have go out there 5-6 innings a time, which that's what Savale does. Eflin I feel like could fit that bill as well. $11 million this year, 18 next year, so it is a little bit of an uptick in price. But 30 years old, he's been great these last 2 years for the Rays. I think led all of baseball, or at least the American League, in wins last year. Was very good for Tampa Bay. Maybe he's a move they don't want to make because the Rays may think they're still in it. But wouldn't hate the Red Sox going after him. I just don't see it as a realistic possibility. And one other name I did see come up as you were doing the hockey segment, Mark Feinsand had an article talking about his names of pitchers that could be moved. He had Nathan Eovaldi on there. Rangers have not had a great season. They've been banged up, so maybe they think if they get healthy, they can make a little bit of a run. But be interesting. If Nathan Eovaldi's name comes up in trade rumors, you want to, and you talk about, because I say this too because you brought up a good point earlier. If you want to get back, if you're John Henry, try to salvage some good grace with the fan base. You trade for Nathan Eovaldi, you bring him back, you go to the playoffs, and maybe you make a little bit of a run, and then, like you said, then you can say like, hey, I made a move. We made the playoffs, so you can't say I didn't do anything anymore. You bring back Nathan Eovaldi, you win a little bit of the fan base back over, I would have to assume. Like that would be a move that would get a lot of people excited because, again, it's a guy that's worked here, a guy that can eat innings, has been phenomenal. We know what he is in the playoffs. So, like I said, I did find it funny and interesting that his Nathan Eovaldi's name maybe has come up as a guy that could get moved at the trade deadline. And how fun would that be, bringing him back here?
That would be really fun.
Yeah.
That'd be really fun.
I don't know what it would cost. I think he may have one more year left on his contract situation. Again, though, that's the one I would be like, all right, we'll give you, a couple of prospects. We're not going to give you anything crazy for him. But if you're moving Nathan Eovaldi, we'll pick up the phone. We'll take that phone call and see, what happens.
Right. I'm in on Eovaldi for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also in on Quantrill if the price is right, and definitely Eflin.
All right, fair enough. I didn't put it in the outline.
Eflin has walked 7 batters this year.
Yeah, he's very good. Banged up a little bit at the start of the year, so the ERA is a little higher than it was last year. The wins aren't where they were last year, and obviously the Rays have not been great this season. But again, guy in his career has been an innings eater, pretty good player, pretty consistent. I think, again, led all of baseball, or at least the American League, I want to say, in wins. And maybe quality starts. I think he had like 20 plus quality starts or something ridiculous. If you look into that, if you're a stat nerd, wouldn't hate them bringing in him. Again, Red Sox have had success trading with the Rays in the past when it comes, speaking of Nathan Eovaldi in deadline trades. So maybe that's something to keep an eye on there.
I'm in.
I did not put it in the outline because I forgot. No, hand up. I will admit to that. But there is one, I can't remember who had it. We were talking about it the other day because I sent it to you. I can't remember who had the article. It might have been Rosenthal. But there was a discussion of, the Red Sox don't really know what they're going to do with the trade deadline yet. They don't know if they're going to move off some pieces. But if they do move off some pieces, Kenley Jansen might be at the top of that list. And teams like the Dodgers, and I want to say the Padres were the other one, maybe. The name and the return for Kenley Jansen, if you trade him to the Dodgers, according to, again, I want to say it was Ken Rosenthal, the name that came up was Walker Buehler. Now, you and I feel like you may still be in on this, high on that move. We're on the sense of like, you don't move off. You want to buy at the trade deadline. You don't want to sell off any pieces or any of these guys on this current roster. If that's on the table though, And again,
Do it.
you have Liam Hendricks coming back. Like I don't want to sell off pieces because I don't know what that's going to do for this team. Like if you move an all-star closer like Kenley Jansen, but if you can get Walker Buehler back, I think he's a free agent at the end of the year, so maybe there's some risk there. You'd obviously have to get him to confirm that he's going to re-sign with
Yeah,
you
like
to move. But Jansen's a free agent too, so maybe they just
there's
kind of go hand in
there's
hand.
risks. Like Kenley Jansen has been rumored to be out for like a year now. Like might as well get something for him. Maybe
Mhm.
Walker Buehler wants to stay. Maybe he doesn't. Who cares? You're not going to keep the guy long term. And Jansen, you might as well get something that helps you now or
But
get a
that's
prospect.
the thing
Or
too. It's
I don't know.
like if what route would you rather take? Would you rather them trade off Jansen, knowing that Hendricks is there to get Walker Buehler potentially for the future? Or would you rather kind of say, hey, we'll keep Kenley here, we'll make a smaller move, get a lesser pitcher, um, keep the team happy, keep Jansen here for the final year, see if he can maybe make a run with him. Like it's an interesting spot to be in. And I don't know how realistic it is. Like, I don't know if you call the Dodgers if they would say, yeah, we'll give you Walker Buehler for like Kenley 1 year of Kenley Jansen because we know what he is and what a fan favorite he is for the Dodgers. Um, but I did find it interesting. Like I would have thought like Kenley Jansen would get back like a middle tier prospect. Like if they were to trade him to the Dodgers and get like Gavin Stone back or someone like that, then I'd be like, okay, that's an interesting move. You get a young pitcher from the Dodgers that might not have a roster spot with all their guys healthy. Um, but to see Walker Buehler's name come up, like that is people forget
That's
Walker
enticing.
Buehler in that 2018 World Series. Like that, I can't remember. That might have been the Eovaldi game, the 18 inning game. That might have been start. No, that was Rich Hill that started that game. I'm sorry. The next night, I think the one we were at Merrimack, that might have been the Moreland home run game. Was Walker Buehler's start where he dominated you for like 5 or 6 innings and you couldn't touch him. Like he's been banged up, had some injuries, but when he's at the top of his game,
Dude, in
like
2021, he went 16-4.
he was a Cy Young uh
Like you take,
finalist, I
yeah,
think.
you trade Kenley Jansen for that guy.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
sorry. I don't really
That's one of
I don't
those
have an
ones where like
affinity
if
towards Kenley Jansen, but like this guy has been rumored to be on the outs for a while now.
yeah.
Like
And that's one of those ones too. Like I
if
know
you
I
turn
said
him
like
into
I
Walker Buehler, go ahead.
yeah, I wonder, like I said, if like that's a move that like maybe shakes the locker room a little bit. Like, what are we doing? We traded Kenley Jansen. You see Walker Buehler walk through that door, then you're like, all right, we traded Kenley Jansen, but we got a guy that we can pair with Tanner Houck if we re-sign him or extend him. As a pretty damn good 1-2 punch if he's healthy.
Love it. I would love
Yeah,
it.
wouldn't hate it. Like
Really would.
I've kind of come around to it. I've kind of gone back and forth the last couple of days with that being like, I don't know how that
I
would
mean,
like trade off the roster. I don't know if I want to do that, but
I mean,
yeah, if you can get that, and again, if he's right and ready to go, like that's and you have Hendricks in the back pocket. He's projected to come
yeah.
back at some point this year, so you're replacing an all-star closer with an all-star closer. Like, wouldn't be the worst thing.
Makes you think. It makes you think. Me thinks they should do it
Yep. But
if
I
they
think
can.
we are in agreement. Like
Yes.
if you had to, because we obviously both want them to do something. We both think they should. Like I know I started this Red Sox talk by Tomasi had him at 25% buyers. If you had to put a number on it, where do you think they're at right now when it comes to wanting to invest in this team? Do you think they will? Or do you think they'll kind of sit pat and do what I said earlier? Of we have guys coming back from injuries, so we'll have them as our trade deadline acquisitions and try to move
Yeah.
on from there.
I'm at the 25% willingness.
Same. Like I don't know what it's gonna take. I don't think it's gonna take anything. Like I've seen some people kind of say that like if this team isn't worth investing in, then you're never gonna see them invest in a team because like they've done everything right this year. They've overcome some early season struggles. They've defied pretty much everyone's expectations. You said it earlier, like no one expected this team to do anything. They've been fun to watch. They've been entertaining. It's been one of the more exciting Red Sox teams they've had in a while. It feels like. You're starting to see some of these young guys. You mentioned it earlier, Duran, Rafaela. These guys kind of come into their own, and ownership should be looking at this team. Like I have to think Greg Breslow in his mind is like this like analyst guy, this team's playing, playing a lot of the game right. Like they're doing a lot of good things. Like I want to be invested in this team, but you said it earlier. Like if you got John Henry and Sam Kennedy over your shoulder, being like, sorry, man, we're putting the cuffs on you. Like you have to think in the back of Craig Breslow's mind, like that pisses you off to some degree because like you want to invest in this team and you want to, show the fan base like, hey, I want to build this team, but if you got the other two idiots or three idiots, you include Tom Warner in that situation, like it's a weird spot to be in.
Yep. Where my pause lies, but we'll see. We have
Okay.
some time in between now. The trade deadline, things can change in a week.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, That's
You
about
just
it.
you crush it. I mean, I don't want to say they have an easy stretch coming up. They got the Yankees who've been scuffling, and then I think it's Detroit and Kansas City. And Kansas City's been good this year. Um, but you've got some games on the schedule where you can really make some headway here to be like, hey, we're worth invested. I hope they don't go down the crapper again. Because if they do, like they start losing a couple games here and there, like then you're gonna get ownership being like, oh well, see, now you're 4 games out.
Our
You know,
hands are tied.
yeah, exactly. Like you kind of you failed us here a little bit. Like we were maybe going to invest in you, but you started losing a couple of series here, like we've seen in the past. Um, like it just that's the one thing I ask of them is make it hard on ownership. Don't lose games where you shouldn't be. Start keep beating up on teams you should, like you've done these first couple games against the Marlins. Um, and kind of put the pressure on to be like, hey, like we're here, we're a game out of a playoff spot. We've been back and forth with Kansas City all season. It seemed last month and a half. It seems like for that final wild card spot. Do something to help us. Like we are worth investing in. We're a good team here. People are starting to come around to us. Like make it hard on ownership is all we're asking at this point.
Exactamundo, my friend. Let's see if they will. Um, Jelani Tavai is extended by the Patriots. 3 by 21, 15 million base. This is one that falls into a similar camp with some others, of getting guys that have proven their worth locked up, keeping them around because you have the money to spend. And I don't really think you should overthink spending on a guy who had 110 combined tackles last year,
Yeah, it's pretty good
5
last year.
pass deflections, a couple picks, proved to be pretty good. Like one of the last living bastions of Matt Patricia.
I thought
Keep him
we were
around.
going with
Like
one of the last living. I was like, oh God, what
no,
is?
yeah. A little dark, but I'm cool with Jelani Tavai. Um, like you still have you as you noted, like approximately 40 million in cap space. Who cares? Keep him around. You
Mhm.
want this team to take a step. He helps you take a step, especially on defense, which was already good last year, largely because of him. If you can keep that mojo together, and some guys take steps, you're gonna be able to keep points off the board, and at least to make games a little more entertaining, even if you lose a bunch of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you. Like it's a guy that's earned a pay raise. Like I've seen some people kind of discuss like, all right, he had one good year last year. Like, does that really garner a three? Like, don't you kind of want to see him, put together a couple of good years and then maybe you give him a pay rate? Like, I don't care about that. You have the cap space, you
Yeah,
spend it. Again, I
you
talked
can
about
get
this.
rid of you can get rid of a contract like this if you need to easily.
Yeah, it's a
Like
super. That's the thing
it's
too.
not gonna have
It's a
insane dead money if you need to
no.
get
It's
rid
an
of him, I
easily
imagine.
movable contract.
Yeah, like it's all good.
But again, it kind of falls into and I'm with you. Like, I don't care about who they're spending it on. Like, I've seen some people argue too. Like, wow, for a 4-win team, you're bringing a lot of like players back for a team that was pretty bad last year. Which again, like, don't care
Like they're
about.
bringing back the right ones
Yeah, you're
though.
bringing back the guys that were good for you last year. Like, I'm not going to
Yeah,
complain about that. The thing I will complain about is that again, like, you're signing all these guys internally. Could you throw some money at somebody that you need? Like I said,
they're
and
not
we
gonna
talked
do
about
that
this
at this
last week.
point
They're
anymore. They're not gonna do
exactly,
that at
but
this point.
I said it last week with the Stevenson situation too. Again, love the player, love the signing. But you see all these guys get re-up, and you like part of me is like, why the fuck couldn't you go out and like pay money for a receiver, overpay for somebody,
They got enough
make
rookies and stuff and
make your team
fringe
a little
guys.
better. But yeah, well, yeah, they love their fringe guys. Like we're gonna.
They it's not worth spending on a huge receiver at this point.
Mhm.
Even for Calvin Ridley, there was risk involved there with how much he got, unless you're like feeling like it's a necessary move and they didn't.
Yeah, fair
So
enough.
that's the way I look at it.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, it's a good way
you
to
know,
look at it. Like,
they're gonna have tons of opportunity to spend next year. Like depending on I think probably no matter how the season goes, they're gonna want to spend a ton next year again, and you know maybe get that de facto number one receiver
yeah,
like a T
absolutely,
Higgins or something. So
gotcha.
we'll see where that goes. I like it. I don't like this as much. Matthew Judon seems to be hinting on the fact that he will not agree to an extension with the Patriots as of now. Fan tweeted at Patriots saying if we don't extend Judon, we're screwed. Play him in what he wants. We want a solid defense. He said, I don't think that's going to happen. And then he tweeted a few hours later that, all right, I'm going to head out. SpongeBob meme. So Matthew Judon is adventurous on Twitter.
Mhm.
Maybe he's just trying to
Like he
rile
likes to
people up.
likes to stir the pot a little bit. Yeah.
Maybe he's just trying to get in their head, or maybe he's just done. He wants to play this out. maybe he wants out by the trade deadline if he's really frustrated, actually. But I don't really care. Like I don't think they were keeping him long term into an like I think his next deal is probably going to be 2 or 3 years at max, maybe
Yeah,
two.
I'm right there with you.
Because like
Absolutely.
I don't know, it's different philosophy when you're not under Belichick. He did things a little more stringently with veterans, but I don't know. Maybe he just wants out. Maybe he wants to. Maybe he's just at this point where he's like, maybe the money's wrong. That's part of it. Maybe he wants to hit free agency and go to a contender, win a
I was just
championship.
gonna say maybe getting older, ring chase a little bit.
Whatever, man. Like, go ahead, fool me.
I
It's
mean,
his right.
it would suck to see him leave because, like you just said, they've all the guys they've extended and re-signed have been the right guys, and I feel like Judon, falls into that
Judon's in
category
the
big time.
older
He's
age
been
bracket, though. That's the thing.
just gonna say that's the flip side of it. It's like, all right, the guys they're signing are on the younger side. They're the core you are building, and you're going to have for a while. Like, does Judon fit that mold? I don't know if he like
He
again.
can
He'd
be
be
a
a
leader,
good
but like, it's
yeah,
just the money too.
exactly.
Come
He'd
on.
be a good guy to keep around, like you said, for two,
Just got
maybe
hurt
three
too. Just
years.
got hurt.
Yep, just
Too
had a
badly.
massive injury. You have no idea how he's going to come back from. So there is that. Like the part of me, like I don't think he's like not happy here. And again, like maybe reading into it too much at this point because like the guy's at everything. Like every Celtics game I feel like I watched on TV, he was like behind the bench or there. So it's not like the guy like hates
He
being
went to
around
friggin' Bruins
Boston.
games.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
what I
even
mean.
know if
Guy,
he even liked hockey before he came to Boston, for fuck's sakes.
yeah, you don't know. But like the interesting too thing because you mentioned Belichick, I wonder like not again. I don't think there's anything there with like with Gerard Mayer or anything, but I do wonder like with Belichick leaving, like Judon seemed to really like Bill Belichick, always talked highly of him. So maybe with Bill gone, maybe Judon at the end of the year is like, all right, like I'm gonna go test, the waters somewhere
Yeah.
else. Like I was here to play, for Bill. Now that Bill's gone, like we're not good. Like like you said, maybe I want to go play for a contender, try to get a ring that I haven't been able to get
Yeah.
yet in my career. So if the guy's gonna do that, like I don't necessarily hate.
Ooh.
Like it would suck to see him leave because he's been good here. He's been a pro's pro. I feel like, has said all the right things,
It's
done
been
all the right
annoying,
things.
but that's
And it's been
okay.
annoying, a
The
little bit
recruiting
annoying at
stuff.
times. You get a little bit more annoyed with the free agency stuff than I do. So
Yeah.
there, but I will agree at times it does get a little tiresome. But yeah, like it would suck to see him go. But again, you're trying to build a young nucleus here, and he doesn't fit that mold. And again, if money has to, well, we know the Patriots have money, so maybe that argument isn't valid. But like, if he wants to go somewhere else and try to get a ring at the end of his career, I can't knock the guy for it. But it is kind of an interesting timing, like you said, a little out of left field with this. And like you said, maybe he's just trying to
Maybe he's
you
just
know
bored.
yeah, you're at the dead point in the I'm not going to say sports world because you had obviously the explosion of hockey and basketball the other day when it comes to news, but before that wasn't a whole lot to talk about when it came to especially football. Um,
Right.
so yeah, maybe he's just sitting home, he's bored, looking for something to do, looking to maybe try to stir up some shit or something. But who knows?
Whatever, man. A little bit of Patriots talk to close out the show. A long show, probably our longest for a while, given the sports cycle.
Oh, it had to be for
So
episode 200. Like he
we're
couldn't throw
unleashing it
together
all
a 30-minute show.
for episode 200. Where we do a few of these long ones a year. This is just one of them. I feel like every year. So thank you so much for listening. Episode 200. Thank you so much for everybody new and old. It does mean a lot. I know we say it whenever we have a big episode, but it does. Um, you know, it's why we do it. Whether you're listening to the whole thing, like some people I know, or bouncing around for certain segments, it means a lot to us. I don't know if you want to add anything, Ryan.
No, I mean the thing for me is always just the massive amount. Like I obviously think of like we have followers and stuff, but like whenever you were to tell me like, oh, we have people listening in like this country or this place, like with being able to see that, like that's been like one of the cool things, the following that we've been able to get over the years of just like kind of outside of like our known area. So that's been
Yeah,
obviously cool and can't stress enough how awesome that's been to
yeah.
see.
Distribution could be a wild thing, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
With these sites, but you can follow us on Twitter at Mike_Cratty, at Ryan_Salvaggio, and the show at Sal and Cratty Pod. You can find us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, Twitch, Podbean, Podchaser. Um, yeah, TikTok as well. Salvaggio and Cratty, throw that in the search bar. And we'll talk to you next week. Enjoy the holiday if you're celebrating. And yeah, we'll see you then next week. Stay safe, stay healthy, be nice to people. all that good stuff. And we'll talk to you then. Peace out.